I single-handedly reduced the Tulkun Empire to ashes, slaughtering hundreds of thousands. Revenge was mine, yet it couldn't bring my sister back. Not even my master could fix this void. If only I could rewrite history. Staring into the mirror, I realized I'd actually regressed. It's dark magic. I'm 14, again, the youngest and third-born son of the prestigious House of Valentier. I wasted away in the gardens while my father questioned my very legitimacy. Only Ron, our loyal butler, showed me any kindness. Guards tracked my every move, and at 14, I was pathetic and weak. My hands lack warrior's calluses, and I show zero affinity for magic. To put it bluntly, I'm the Valentier laughingstock, totally useless. But my future knowledge changes everything. Suddenly, a sharp sting hit my neck. Instinctual fear made me shudder. My older brother had arrived to torment me again. Fallon Valentier was the sole reason. I never touched mana. He swore to kill me if I ever dared to learn magic or swordsmanship. Even, the household servants mocked me behind my back. What a joke. The only person in this family I ever trusted was my sister, but she couldn't inherit, and the monster who exploited her stands right before me. Enraged, Fallon swings a heavy punch, but I catch his arm midair. The guards are stunned. With a quick pivot, that idiot slams hard onto the dirt. Time for some free humiliation. Fuming Fallon flares his aura. I knew right then the guards wouldn't lift a finger to help. Suddenly, Ron steps in. He takes a brutal blow to the face and collapses. Is he helping or just interfering? I respected Ron's loyalty. My moron brother started barking threats again, but he's nothing but pure trash. So, I dared him to try me. Livid, he lunged with his blade, but losing wasn't an option today. I closed the gap, whispering that it was time for his discipline. Fallon tried fleeing, but I locked a technique on his skull. Every ounce of humiliation returns to him today. One move, and the idiot was already drooling. Then, he blacked out. The guards flinched, but one cold warning kept them frozen in place. Perfect. Now it's your turn. I grabbed him by the hair, dragging his heavy, bloated body like a rag doll. It's a scorcher today, so I decided to help my dear brother cool off. The bastard was too shocked to even trigger his mana defense. As I dunked him, memories of his future atrocities flooded back. Right, after my sister's wedding, he betrayed our father and murdered him to seize the title of Marquis. He systematically dismantled our family, spitting on the noble sacrifice my sister made for us. That gentle soul was handed to the fourth prince, a notorious monster. But back to reality. This rat finally found his voice whimpering for mercy like a terrified child. But I've seen that face countless times in my past life. It's the look of someone tasting death. Today he'll learn what family means. Just as I was about to break him, Ron begged me to stop. I understood his silent plea. Seeing his nose looked a bit itchy, I gently slammed it against the fountain's stone edge. Problem solved, no more itch and barely a nose left. I ordered the guards to clear this trash. They needed to move while he was still breathing. Naturally, the news spread like wildfire through the estate. Everything flipped upside down. Fallon is my half-brother and the designated heir to the massive Valentier fortune. But there he was, laid out cold after I cracked his skull open like a summer coconut. The patriarch soon caught wind of the chaos and summoned me immediately. The entire mansion was in a panic. Everyone stared with judging eyes while pretending I didn't exist. When I reached the patriarch's study, the guards tried to block my path, acting like I was invisible. So I kicked one squarely in the shin. Hard to ignore me now, right? Since they still refused entry, I just turned and walked away. If he wants me, he can come find me himself. Surprisingly, the head of the family just laughed, realizing his youngest son had changed. I waited calmly in the garden, soaking in the peace. It didn't take long for the storm to arrive. The whole entourage appeared with the patriarch leading the way. I loathe him for his insatiable greed, for forbidden powers. He sold my sister and plotted my death. I'll never call this man father. I gave him a cold welcome. Why, he demanded. I simply smirked and asked, why what? His gaze sharpened. His wife began barking about my lack of respect. Suddenly, the patriarch's overwhelming aura flooded the garden. He was scanning me for a mana heart. Finding nothing, he concluded I simply possessed raw martial talent. He demanded to know why I kept him dark. I told the lunatic I just didn't want to, making him even angrier. The patriarch saw my value, which disgusted me. I'm no son of his if utility is all that matters. I asked if he expected me to call him father. He countered, but I truly couldn't care less. I said exactly that. Everyone froze in shock, but he just turned away without a hint of rage. He'd heard enough. Here I am treating the great house head like total trash without a second thought. He isn't even mad. Why show up? Then I have plans I can't share with you just yet. Remembering his stepmother, Jack throws a jab, noting how many wrinkles she's gained after everything. He told her to take better care. Her face burned with rage, nearly snapping her fan in half. All because of an insolent brat. Jack smirked. That woman had never done a single thing for him. That look of hers was deeply satisfying. He rose, bowed, and asked them to pass on his regards. To the second son, ironically. Back in his room, the butler delivers the heavy news. Jack Valentier, the third son, has been sentenced to 20 days of solitary confinement for stirring up chaos. Suddenly, Ron hesitates, asking what went down while he was away. Jack tells him to shut it. He knew Ron would have stayed silent even if Phylan hit him. Why get angry now? Pausing his drawing, the boy wonders how interesting this isolation will be. Exiled to the Rose Garden already, he couldn't imagine what would be different in reclusion. Just another room for his thoughts. The butler notes the academy starts in less than a month. He's being locked up as the break ends. Jack stands frozen, completely blindsided by the news. He'd totally forgotten his studies, having lived a completely different life for so long. He's 14 now, meaning attendance at the Imperial Academy is strictly mandatory. Every aristocrat in the Tesland Empire must study there unless they have a physical disability. Daily in-person attendance is required for 4 years, starting from age 14. Jack was still a first year. The first semester ended, and summer vacation was just beginning. It felt weird being a student again. Plus, his teacher was directly linked to the academy. He could skip any class except hers. He wouldn't waste more time arguing with his father. Rationally, studying was his only option. There were only 27 days of vacation left, 20 days in jail, 6 traveling. In other words, he was being shipped off to school, sent straight from prison. He struggled to understand his past self. With a weary look, Ron asked if the young master was done painting. Jack stood and touched the easel. Where would he be confined? The servant's silence annoyed him, so he asked again firmly. The blonde explained there was only one place for the condemned, the prison for common criminals. Jack was stunned and unsure. Am I really being thrown into a criminal prison? The answer was yes. Not a shock, but a shout of frustration escaped him regardless. He couldn't believe that senile old man did this. The academy vacation was no rest, just an extension of the obvious. Phylan used to attend high society social events. He met noble families and vassals. Jack never even had a taste of that life. He didn't care for Marquis business, but his relatives' words fumed him. He had no place. Not here, not anywhere. Now he's locked in a filthy cell because of that old idiot. The boy decided to head to the dungeon alone, without an escort, saving his last shred of dignity. Ron's expression was strangely pitiful as he left, drying his tears with a silk handkerchief. He looked at Jack like a lost kitten, while Jack just told them to hurry up. He still had it better than most inmates, a bed, a bath, and 3 meals daily. But what's the point in a tiny cell, with a blanket unwashed for 50 years? And food so revolting even flies wouldn't touch it. Our boy crosses his arms in disgust. Too much time to think for days on end, too much for a teenager. Landed aristocrats. These lords played God, ignoring imperial law to torment the locals however they pleased. Within their own borders, they were absolute kings. Jack was jailed, but his noble blood remained. He hadn't staged a coup yet, his father still threw him into a cold cell. He wondered how the Marquis would spin this disaster to protect his golden child, second son. Maybe frame Jack for using forbidden artifacts. No, that was a bit much even for them. The Marquis likely already crafted a perfect lie to justify Flynn's pathetic state. The narrative, Jack Valentier, the family's black sheep, turned to dark magic out of pure greed. Then Flynn, the saintly brother, tried to save him, but Jack was far too gone. Jack supposedly lashed out with forbidden spells to silence his brother. What a tragic, noble lie. That script was definitely looping in his parents' twisted minds. It made his skin crawl. This dungeon was a dump. Jack wasn't about to waste his precious time in this hole. He had zero loyalty to this house, but 3 reasons kept him from escaping just yet. His sister Ron and his master. Plus, his current body was a total mess. At 14, he was scrawny and weak. Survival here meant being at the top of the food chain. The weak get devoured while the strong thrive. He wasn't looking for a bloodbath, just justice. He needed 2 things for his revenge time and overwhelming power. The academy was the answer. With his past life knowledge, he'd regain his peak strength and protect those who actually mattered. It was time to take back what was his. Mana began pulsing in his palms. Magic power is ranked from 1 to 10. Circles 1 through 3 are just the beginning. 7 to 9 is elite territory. But the 10th circle, that's reserved for literal superhumans. Jack focused, forming a brilliant blue glow. Luckily, no one was around to see this miracle. In just 2 hours, he manifested the first circle. Being young definitely had its perks. Last time he started at 17. Now he was years ahead of the game. He admired his handiwork for a second, before a sound echoed from the dark hallway. Footsteps. They weren't heavy like the Marquis. Jack quickly dove under his blanket. Then he heard it, a voice from his distant, hazy memories. He sat up instantly. Standing behind the iron bars was his sister Elizabeth, her eyes brimming with tears. She reached out, her voice trembling as she asked if he was okay. Seeing her kind soul again brought Jack to the verge of tears. She actually came. Jackie. Hearing that old nickname was like music, he smiled, reassuring her he was fine. Elizabeth was worried sick. Why would you use forbidden magic? I would have taught you myself. Jack apologized, but she pivoted, asking why he'd returned home so early. His silence made her uneasy. Jack, tell me the truth. Are you really okay? He just wiped his eyes and gave her a genuine smile. I'm just happy, Elizabeth. She looked at him like he'd lost it, happy in a filthy, freezing cage. I'm just glad this isn't a dream, he confessed. I've missed you so much. Her eyes widened. Then Jack turned deadly serious. Want to run away with me? He suggested living in the woods, starting a quiet farm together. Elizabeth just sighed, scolding him. Her brother's sudden hollow silence sent a chill through her, forcing her to ask if he'd truly snapped. But Jack just wiped his eyes, flashing a radiant smile as he claimed he was finally happy. Elizabeth was stunned. How could he find joy while rotting in a place like this in a cage? That was freezing, filthy, and lonely. Jack whispered that this reality was everything he'd ever wanted. After spending a lifetime dreaming of seeing her again, she feared he'd finally lost his mind. But his gaze sharpened, locking onto hers. He finally dropped the bombshell. Should we run away together? He rambled about nomadic forests and starting a farm, but Elizabeth's cold voice cut his fantasy short. Jack stands firm, knowing exactly how Fallon and the Marchioness tormented her. It's time to leave that hell behind and find peace. He hopes she'll find someone who truly treasures her. But as he dreams of a quiet farm and curses the Lord, Elizabeth's sharp cry cuts him off. She begs him to stop spitting such venomous words about their father. To her, he was still the head of the house, regardless of the girl they had brought in to replace her. She believed she was born from his deep love for her mother, unable to see the monster Jack despised so much. Still hoping to mend their broken bond, she pleads with Jack to endure his suffering just a little longer. Jack simply whispers how overwhelming it feels to finally see his sister's face after all this time. The sudden warmth makes her blush. He tells her to step back from the iron bars, and she obeys, her mind spinning with confusion. In a heartbeat, Jack shatters the lock and flings the cell door open. He lunges forward, pulling his sister into a desperate, crushing embrace. Through hot tears, he chokes out a sincere apology, begging for forgiveness for everything. Elizabeth grips his shoulders, panicked. This behavior was beyond strange. She began to fear that her little brother had finally lost his mind. Our hero just smiles, reassuring her that he's never been better. As they hold each other tight in the dim light, he swears that this time the script will change. She won't be the one sacrificing her life, he'll be the one working. So Elizabeth can finally be free. But the noble remembers the dark shadow approaching the fourth prince. In his past life, that royal snake was the one who stole her away. Back then, she was walking into a trap. That scumbag was the monster who forged Jack into a killing machine. Flickers of the horrific tortures he was forced to perform flooded back into his consciousness. He remembered dragging the monarch to the table and chaining him down like an animal. Rage boiled in his veins. He would never ever forgive the Tolkien Empire for the nightmare they inflicted on his sister. In that past timeline, Jack fled home at 17. 10 years later, he returned to a world of ruins. The Teslan kingdom was gone, and his home was nothing but rubble. Tolkien had become an unstoppable empire, ruling the entire western continent with an iron fist. The House of Valentier was barely a memory. In those dark days, he remembered his sister was still alive, trapped. She had become the fourth prince's wife, desperately begging for mercy for her fallen family. But she wasn't the real wife, and the coward shoved her aside, telling her to stop annoying him with such trash. Even through that hell, Elizabeth's heart never hardened. She knelt in the palace for 3 agonizing days and nights, until the generous prince finally granted her a single wish. That was the official fairy tale spread across the continent from the frozen north to the southern seas. But the truth hidden beneath that mercy was stomach-turning. Elizabeth tried to show gratitude, but she was walking into a nightmare. The prince pinned her against the wall, his voice dripping with cold malice as he shattered her delusions, warning her never to cross him, as he could erase her entire house on a whim. He was simply waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In exchange for her family's safety, she had to be his perfect puppet, a plaything for his most twisted and depraved desires. He treated her like a common slave, yet his legal wives were still consumed by a toxic, murderous envy. When he finally grew bored of her, he locked her in a cold, isolated room to rot alone and terrified. Orchestrated by those petty wives, the House of Voltaire was utterly annihilated. So, when Jack finally returned, all he found where his home once stood were piles of cold, gray ashes. That tragedy transformed him into a true demon. He swore to burn the Tolkien Empire to the ground. He started by slaughtering the Empress and the Princess, showing no mercy to anyone related to the throne. He hunted down every royal wife and every noble family that dared to support them, until nothing was left. He wouldn't stop until every last one of them was erased. He refused to let even a shadow of them remain. Now back in the present, Jack looks at Elizabeth in her cell, swearing he won't let history repeat itself. But the girl is oblivious to the blood on his soul. She just worries for her brother, asking him to behave for their father. He gives a slow, determined nod, promising her that he will handle everything from now on. This time he'll do whatever is necessary. As she walks away, her heart is heavy, her little brother has changed. The timid boy was gone. In his place was a man with a chilling newfound aura of absolute confidence. That magic was staggering. Even a sixth circle master like her couldn't detect a single trace of darkness. But her father was a seventh circle powerhouse. Something was seriously wrong if he failed to notice his son's potential. Elizabeth bursts into her father's study. Finding him sipping tea, she begs for Jack's release from the dungeon. To her, that magic was just a myth. How could a clueless child wield it? This imprisonment was a front. It was a scheme to keep him hidden. She insists Jack doesn't want the throne, which infuriates the Lord. She realizes this isn't just Jack's punishment. It's a cold-blooded warning aimed directly at her own future. Her sharp intuition catches him off guard. He never expected his daughter to be this perceptive, after years of silence. Living as a mere tool for the Marquis had trapped her in a destiny she understood all too well. Exactly. It was a threat. If Jack stepped out of line or rejected his fate, he'd pay the price. The Lord declares Jack doesn't fit this family. Once he's of age, he'll fake Jack's death and banish him. Elizabeth freezes. She thought she saw a flicker of kindness, but he quickly crushes that hope with a warning. Don't forget your duty, he warns. She stares at the old man's vicious lapdog, finally seeing the cold truth. The Lord wonders how a boy with 0 circles defeated a superior third circle opponent. He took down a prodigy. Elizabeth's heart sinks. What does he mean, 0 circles? Then what did she witness in that cell? The Lord cuts her off, agreeing to set the boy free. Favor granted. Elizabeth bows out, thanking him for the mercy while her mind races with unanswered questions. She collapses the moment the door shuts. Jack's offer to run away together haunts her a beautiful impossibility. Her legs give out. She breaks down in sobs as the morning sun begins to touch the horizon. Sunlight hits Jack's face. He spent the night haunted by vivid memories of his past life's brutal end. Maybe it was the new cell, but there's no time to think. A guard arrives to announce his freedom. Jack smirks, joking that he was actually starting to like the suite. The guard holds out his fresh clothes. Jack offers a mock thanks. But when the guard refuses to give back his boots, claiming none are available, Jack's patience evaporates instantly. He snaps at the guard, demanding to know what he's thinking. Do you think we're buddies? The guard fumbles an apology, but it's already way too late for excuses. Mana surges into Jack's fist with terrifying intensity. Without a second thought, the boy strikes with cold-blooded precision. He teaches the servant a lesson. Later, Jack dresses up to finally return to the palace gardens. Ron, ever the loyal companion, sprints across the yard. His eyes are filled with genuine concern for Jack. Ron frantically checks the master for injuries. When he spots dark stains on Jack's clothes, his heart drops. Panic sets in, but Jack casually waves it off. It's not his blood. Yet his gaze shifts to the perimeter. Security has tripled. Jack notices an unusual amount of soldiers. The butler quickly explains the new situation. 10 elite infantrymen and a high-ranking squire from the Iron Blood Knights have been deployed to guard the Marquis. One squire stands out clad in shimmering plate armor with a face as cold as the steel he wears. Poor guy, Jack mutters. A talented knight wasted on babysitting duty for some pampered noble brat. He definitely didn't sign up for this. Sensing Jack's stare, the knight's posture tenses as their eyes meet. Jack realizes this blonde knight probably knew about him since his time in the dungeon. The tension is palpable. The knight approaches with a stiff bow, wasting no time before questioning the young master about the prison incident. Tell me what happened back there, he asks. Jack is stunned. This guy is surprisingly well-mannered for a soldier. The blonde knight clarifies that a recent report claimed the boy had brutally maimed a prison guard. Ripping out fingers and an eyeball, Ron is outraged, immediately jumping in to defend his young master's reputation. He swears Jack is incapable of such violence. But the knight stands his ground, demanding the truth. Jack cuts him off with a dry, insulting laugh. The squire's face darkens as the boy's disrespect hits home. Sure, Jack sneers, treating the word like trash. He begins sizing up the knight's aura and strength. Judging by his flow, he's likely a fourth circle warrior. Jack smirks and decides to drop a truth bomb. I expected a mere watchdog to know its place. The knight frowns, complaining that the boy's words are harsh. Jack doesn't see the big deal, but Ron scolds him. To Jack, a servant's only purpose is to obey. Stick close and keep a sharp eye on him. Handle everything, even the cleaning, in whatever time you need. But don't you dare speak to the young lord. Since he's desperate to be a knight, Jack tells him to just stay put and pray. To avoid more drama, the knight bows his head in total submission, begging the young master for forgiveness. That deep bow brings a smirk to the boy's face. He's thrilled with his newly trained and obedient lapdog. Spinning on his heel, Jack ends the chat and orders the squire to report back with the final results. Mess handled. He tells him to take any complaints straight to the Marquis. Oh, and his new nickname, Little Chick? He better come running when Jack calls that name. Finally, he and Ron head back to the palace, leaving the chick behind. In the heavy silence, Jack's stomach lets out a massive roar. He turns to the butler with a serious request. He's craving some high-quality meat. Without a second thought, the servant promises to satisfy his every wish. An epic feast is whipped up just for him instantly. Jack digs in, finally silencing his growling hunger. He can't help but praise Ron's legendary cooking skills. Seeing the tension on Ron's face, Jack tells him to just spit it out. And stop staring at me like that. But Ron hesitates. With a sly grin, Jack offers the man some meat, suggesting they eat together. The butler freezes. How could a mere servant like him dare to share a table with the young master? Jack tells him to drop the lecture and just sit. They have serious business to discuss, so the man finally gives in. He takes a seat with the young lord and gets straight to the point. Jack asks about his sister's current condition. Ron says Elizabeth is her usual self. Jack's eyes sparkle with fake innocence, but his words start cutting like a blade. He makes it clear that Ron is an idiot. Out of everyone, Ron should know exactly how much his sister has been suffering. The butler trembles. He tries to continue his story, but Jack cuts him off to praise the delicious food once again. This flavor, it reminds him of his childhood, back when he could eat without a single worry, all thanks to the butler. Ron was always there, checking every ingredient for poison. The butler is stunned that Jack actually remembered that. But Jack isn't done dropping bombs yet. He knows another secret that Ron actually belongs to a very specific group, a member of the hidden circle of male mages. Once again, Ron is caught completely off guard by his knowledge. Jack knows everything, he continues. Since you were always by my mother's side, you must know the truth. You must know, but I have no idea who my biological mother was since she passed when I was born. Since everyone says Elizabeth is her spitting image, Jack figures his mother must have been a saint. That was his honest belief. He confirms that Ron was his mother's secret guardian, protecting her from the shadows. Her escort was a high-level mind circle mage. If this were a novel, Jack would have called it unrealistic and quit. But this was his reality. He remembers his past life fleeing home with the butler by his side. Assassins sent by his own father were hunting them down. It was a stormy night, and the tension was suffocating. Those killers were likely from the Iron Blood Knights, just like that girl from earlier. The Marquis sent them to erase his own son. Back then, their leader was a monstrous Ninth Circle swordsman. Ron sacrificed everything to save Jack, unleashing a terrifying explosion of mana against their pursuers. Jack admits he was terrified when he realized Ron was actually the legendary Ninth Circle mage from the past. He was the one who accompanied his mother. Jack knew she was no ordinary commoner, a secret even the Marquis was clueless about. Maybe even Ron didn't know. But Jack decides he'll keep living his life without digging up those old secrets. All that matters is who Ron is in the present. After that long explanation, the man asks what the young master wants. Jack explains that he only trusts Ron and his sister. That's why he needs Ron to watch over her. It's a strange request since Elizabeth is already a Sixth Circle prodigy at only 18 years old. She's more than capable of protecting herself. However, Jack knows her heart better than anyone. Jack argues that she's far too kind, the type of person who'd sacrifice her own life for the sake of others. A life of sacrifice isn't what she deserves. It's exactly what the Marquis wants to exploit. He reveals he's leaving for the academy early tomorrow. He won't be back unless a major disaster strikes. He'll be gone for 4 long years, and he needs someone he can trust to guard his sister during that time. After that, Ron is free to do whatever he wants with his life. Ron looks down, confused by Jack's words. Jack clarifies he doesn't want Ron hiding in his shadow anymore. He wants him to discover his own true purpose. The servant's curiosity piques why exactly 4 years at the academy. Jack claims only then could he truly protect Elizabeth. But from whom? Before he can explain, a sudden intruder bursts in, shattering the silence. Even at this crucial moment, he couldn't just kick the little chick out. James arrived to report the guard was patched up and sent for treatment. Jack fakes concern, prompting the blonde to vent about the guard's accident. Apparently, he fumbled during training and dropped a dagger into his own eye. Jack praises the good work and asks if the Marquis's puppy wants a bone. James snaps back, calling Jack a chick, before asserting his real name, James Cantor. Ignoring him, Jack demands a real sword and a wooden one to start training. The squire scoffs with knightly pride, barking that he isn't some lowly errand boy. Jack chuckles. Still a chick, huh? He grins, suggesting this is the perfect chance. A chance for a beatdown. Ron bolts upright while James stares in disbelief. Jack shows off his soft, inexperienced hands, claiming he's never held a blade. He invites James to land as many hits as he wants in a duel. You want me to be your master? James asks, but Jack just laughs. That's the third funniest joke he's ever heard. He orders James get the swords. Once James leaves, Ron worries, is Jack ready for a fourth circle opponent? Jack isn't fazed. He's more worried about James getting hurt. His confidence is absolute. Jack proposes a wager. Ron considers it, suggesting they bet on the hits taken. Betting on hits instead of winners, Jack loves the idea. What's the stakes? Despite Jack's bravado, Ron warns him the squire is in a different league. Ron doubts Jack's skills, but the boy counters Ron wins if Jack lands one hit. Ron is stunned. Just one single blow. What is the kid planning? The loser must grant the winner a wish. This makes Ron look momentarily somber. He tells Jack that as his servant, any wish is already an absolute command. That loyalty only makes Jack want to tease the poor butler even more. Jack points at him, declaring Ron and his sister are the only ones he trusts. Pointing forks is rude, Ron scolds, but his eyes shine with secret joy. With an innocent face, Jack explains he doesn't give orders to those he trusts. He only asks for favors. Ron's heart melts. How could he ever say no? Suddenly, James stumbles back into the room and drops to his knees, begging. He begs Jack to reconsider. Plenty of punks disrespect Jack, but this is different. Insults are one thing, but actually laying hands on the master, that's a line. Jack realizes the guard is terrified of the fallout, which is why he's groveling. Jack coldly asks for a private spot, away from prying eyes oozing dominance. He taunts James as the big bad squire, afraid of losing to a teenager. So, you're sure you'll crush me, right? Jack asks, reading the blonde's arrogant face. James's silence says it all. Jack turns to Ron, asking for a secluded training ground. Though startled, Ron cannot lie to his master, and reveals the perfect spot. A secret basement at the back, packed with pristine weapons and training gear. Jack asks if Ron trains here, but Ron says his mother built this. Jack is confused. If it's for him, why didn't he know it existed? Simple Jack never bothered to train. Yet despite the neglect, it's spotless. Someone clearly maintains it with care. Jack smiles, thanking Ron for everything. The man looked pretty smug about his handiwork. Finally, his sharp gaze shifted toward the trembling boy. He demanded the training sword. The blonde squire hesitated, clearly unsure about this. But the kid kept the pressure on. Reluctantly, he handed over the weapon, his voice still shaking. The squire noted that our hero moved like a seasoned pro who'd lived by the blade. Jack just smirked. If he piled up every soul he'd reaped in his past life, they'd literally touch the stars. He thanked him and told the knight to quit holding back. Wooden swords or not, the clash began. Jack effortlessly toyed with his opponent, making him miss. Then, with surgical precision, the protagonist pressed the tip of his wooden blade against the knight's throat. James froze, unable to process how he'd been humbled so fast. Ron snapped the young lord back to reality, warning the boy about the weight of his actions. As one slip with real steel would mean game over. He wanted a real fight, not play pretend. The blonde stood speechless. Jack's talent was unreal. Was this truly his first time holding a sword? Even Ron was shook. Just moments ago, the young master had charged in with pure aggression. The knight had swatted him away easily. For a 14-year-old, that blow should have been devastating. Jack should have been face down in the dirt, disarmed and broken. But that's not what happened. Instead, the kid moved with flawless grace. With real blades, James would be a corpse right now. Something had changed in Jack. This boy had never even touched a sword before today. Was he a natural-born genius? No, even a prodigy couldn't be this terrifyingly skilled. Lost in thought, the teen confirmed the squire was only in his early 20s. And at 23, James revealed he'd started his mana training back when he was 18. Jack grinned like a complete maniac. Faking excitement, he began to grill the knight, asking if the blonde hit the 4th circle in 5 years. That's some serious main character energy. Assessing his mana, Jack realized this guy could easily hit the 8th circle, a total powerhouse. Without a word, the boy dropped the wooden toy and prepared for the real deal. James asked if he wanted live steel, joking about wasting such talent on babysitting duty. Jack admitted he was starting to like him. Seeing the sharp blade, James issued a warning. "You might get hurt," he teased. Jack's cold refusal sent the knight into fits of laughter. Then Jack's face went stone cold. He explained the thin line between arrogance and true confidence. He asked if the knight thought it was a fluke. James was speechless, his blood boiling. "You're still just a fledgling." Jack beckoned him forward. It was time for round 2. Teeth gnashing in pure rage, the knight lunged forward, letting his emotions take control. Such a rookie mistake. Falling for bait like that only proved how weak he really was. Once again, James was disarmed. The young master's cold steel was resting right against his chin. Jack smiled sweetly. That's loss number 2. The knight was drowning in pure confusion. He demanded answers, but Jack just played dumb, claiming he simply nudged the blade's path. James pushed for the truth. Flexing hard, Jack called it a high-level advanced technique. Shaken to his core, the knight gripped his real sword, desperate for a final showdown. Meanwhile, our hero looked at Ron. The bet was won, and Ron silently nodded in agreement. When asked for his orders, Jack's request was simple: protect Elizabeth with everything you have. He needed to know if his servant was truly capable. Ron froze the weight sinking in, but he vowed to risk his life. Back in the fray, the knight declared this time would be different. Jack readies his stance, circulating his mana. His opponent was still surging with power as well. The squire demanded full effort, but on the first strike, James was shut down instantly. Jack's mana pierced his skin like needles, dropping him instantly. Jack pinned him with a boot. Terrified and broken, he gasped. How could a mere first circle kid possess such monstrous power? How could he wield such insane power? Pure chaos erupted as a mere first circle mage actually crushed him. The secret was actually quite basic. Instead of the standard play, spreading mana evenly across the body, to boost physical stats, our boy focused every ounce of energy into one lethal point. Jack just brushed him off, asking if the squire seriously dreamed of becoming a high-ranking knight. The guy was clueless. Wasn't he one already? Desperate for answers, he pressed Jack to explain his cryptic words. Then came the wild offer. Jack wanted the blondie to be his loyal hunting dog. James looked totally insulted, but the MC doubled down. If he became a hound that only answered to him, his life would eclipse any official knight's rank. The knight wavered, trapped between his code of honor and pure curiosity. He asked what was in it for him, annoying Jack, who grumbled that the guy didn't even ask about his actual duties. Ignoring the blonde's trash personality, our hero promised him absolute power and authority if that was his price. His job, dead simple. He just had to erase anyone who blocked his master's path or caused trouble. That chilling explanation left both James and Ron completely stunned. Naturally, the knight's first question was, who's the target? Jack's answer was cold and obvious, it's Phylon. Since he was still bedridden, Jack gave him 24 hours. Later, the young master retreated to his room with Ron. The servant couldn't help but ask if trusting James was a massive mistake. Jack didn't buy it, though. Ron warned him that their conversation might leak to the Marchioness. The boy just laughed it off, but got checked instantly. The Marchioness was hunting for a weakness. If she knew Jack was leaving for the academy tomorrow, she'd block him or worse, make him disappear. Our MC didn't break a sweat. He knew she wanted him gone, but she wouldn't strike. Ever since that Phylon incident, his brother was terrified of water. The lady was biding her time, but her hands were full, as long as he watched her. And the lord who was pressuring Elizabeth into submission during this crisis, she couldn't touch him. Ron was clearly torn, begging to know if the boy was actually certain. Jack just countered by asking if he really thought the Marquis would let that woman run wild. With the academy as his only destination, how could she possibly destroy him now? At most, she'd manage a few broken bones. Besides, a mere Marchioness couldn't pull off a feat like that. Far more powerful entities had tried and failed before. His detachment was almost hilarious. Closing the topic, Jack thanked the servant for the relaxing massage. Done with the back and forth, Ron just muttered a, "You're welcome." The kid warned him his time only comes when Jack says so. This creeped Ron out, making him ask if Jack planned to sneak away. He chuckled, admitting that was basically the plan. Ron wasn't laughing at all. Jack told him to shadow him in secret if he was that curious about tomorrow's events, which caught the servant off guard. He assumed he'd be right by the young master's side. But that was a no-go, so he made the butler swear to stay hidden until he exited the room. Jack announced he'd established the second circle in his room to avoid interruptions. Ron, baffled by the mention of the second circle, asked if that wasn't supposed to be incredibly hard. For the boy, it was a total breeze. Still skeptical, the servant agreed to the plan as he wandered through the castle halls. James couldn't shake the memory of his clash with the brat. With skills like that, he had to be third circle. Maybe the kid was a genius, but that offer to become his watchdog was just straight up insane. He lacked his brother's parental backing and didn't have a single vassal supporting his cause. No, the third young master had zero leverage. Recalling the kid's promise of a better life didn't help one bit. James admitted he'd let a clueless child's words get in his head. He needed to spill everything to the Marchioness. From Jack's hidden martial talent to the rumors the mansion servants were whispering in the basement. The blonde smirked, thinking this was his golden ticket to impress the High Lords. No matter how gifted that brat was, he couldn't take down the Marquis's house unless he was a total monster. Meanwhile, in Elizabeth's chambers, the girl heard her mother, a mere commoner, offer her a once-in-a-lifetime shot. The Marchioness claimed there was nothing special about being talented, because as long as she was Noah's daughter, she remained completely uninteresting. Her face was a mask of silence, but inside she was reeling from the woman's poisonous words. Meanwhile, the Marquess played the doting mother, pushing a drink on her. Elizabeth immediately recoiled, refusing the gesture. She couldn't dare drink before her mistress. Shrugging, the witch slammed back the wine and kept gossiping effortlessly. She mentioned Duke Malone's son was interested, but then she abruptly cut herself off with a sharp sneer. That middle son was total trash. The Marquis promised a better pawn, while Elizabeth had to stay obedient. "Behave yourself," she warned. Suddenly she leaned in. Got a crush on someone. Elizabeth's denial was way too fast. The lady smiled like a predator. If a lover existed, they'd simply vanish from this world without a trace. Then she began rambling about her younger brother, sensing Jack was brewing up some very intriguing schemes lately. Hearing Jack's name sent a chill down Elizabeth's spine. She couldn't grasp the witch's cryptic and terrifying riddles. The Marquess knew about Jack's secret meeting. He was trying to recruit knights to overthrow her entire regime, but she never expected James to be backing him all along. Elizabeth huddled in her seat, completely paralyzed. The Marquess cackled like a maniac. "To think he tried to eliminate me with such a pathetic ally. His plan is a total joke." Her laughter turned sinister, echoing through the room as Elizabeth's face went pale. She blamed Jack's toxic upbringing for his insanity, but Elizabeth knew she had to bite her tongue for now. One wrong move and her resentment would explode. After the witch finally finished her agonizing laughing fit, she calmed down and fixed her gaze on Elizabeth. The topic was dead, but the husband hunt continued. "I'm only telling you this because I care," she lied. Then she leaned in close with a deadly aura. Coiling her arms around the girl's neck, like a snake, she hissed, "Secret lovers only end up in graves." Elizabeth shook like a leaf, whispering her submission. The witch loved the fear, patting her head like a pet. "Get ready for dinner," the monster commanded before vanishing. Elizabeth just stared at the floor, broken and defeated. As darkness blanketed the estate, the servants scrambled to set the table. The grand feast was finally ready. The Valentier family gathered in tense silence until the heavy doors were kicked open with a thunderous bang. Jack strolled in like he owned the place. Why the long faces? Did someone die? Every head snapped toward him. Elizabeth froze while his father's eyes burned with pure hatred. Jack just flashed a wicked, innocent-looking grin. As the family's precious third son, I deserve a seat. Just moments ago, he'd been deep in mana training. He was mastering mana control. One path strengthens the body, boosting raw power, sharp senses, and peak intelligence. It's the ultimate physical buff. But the second path is more complex, shaping mana into systematic lethal magic formulas. Think fireballs, icy spears, and absolute hellfire. This is where mana becomes a literal weapon of mass destruction. Ron was a god-tier 9th circle mage, while James was a 4th-rank swordsman. Jack had both paths open. He was born for the blade, but magic was also within his grasp. He wasn't just another ordinary knight. Radiant mana surged around him as he sat on his bed. Even the butler stood there completely jaw-dropped. "It took me 2 months to hit the second circle," Ron stammered. Jack's progress was absolutely insane. Most people rot in the first circle for months. Reaching the second so fast is practically a miracle. For a normal person, this was impossible. But Jack, the regressor, just smiled and complimented Ron's hard work. Ron let out a dry laugh. Hearing praise from a monster like Jack felt almost insulting at this point. This kid had mastered the second circle in mere hours. By the way, Jack asked, "What time is it?" "It is 17:48, young master." Jack bolted upright, shocked by how long he'd been in the zone. It was prime dinner time. He considered grilling a steak in his room like a total loner again. But then he realized his toxic family was likely feasting in the main hall right now without him. Why miss out on the noble spread? Ron thought he was crazy, but Jack just flashed a sly lie. "I'm just going to tell them I'm leaving tomorrow." Cut to the hall, Jack was already destroying a drumstick. He savored every bite of the high-end feast. "Not bad," he teased, licking his fingers like a total menace. Still, Ron's cooking clears this mid-food. The table erupted in silent fury. Jack finished his meal unbothered. "Thanks for the grub," he chirped. His father's voice boomed, demanding to know why the hell he was there. Jack smirked. "Yeah, why else would I step foot in this dump? I'm out of here tomorrow morning." His reckless tone made the Lord question if his son had finally lost his mind. Unfazed, Jack kept poking the bear, asking why his father wore such a bizarre expression. The air turned thick with hostility. Elizabeth pleaded with Jack to talk outside, desperate to offer him anything his heart desired. But the Marquis cut her off. Amidst the suffocating silence, he demanded the boy speak his piece once and for all. Jack declared his departure for the academy tomorrow, unable to stomach the mansion's toxic atmosphere any longer. Despite his boiling rage, the Marquis gave the green light. Yet Jack wasn't seeking permission. He was just avoiding a pointless brawl. Jack smirked, satisfied with his father's blessing. With that settled, he leaned back, feeling dangerously comfortable. He turned his gaze toward his brother, who visibly shuddered. Swirling his wine, Jack mentioned hearing that Phylon couldn't even take a sip of water due to his newfound phobia. He must be dying of thirst. Despite being the brother who beat him out of boredom, Jack still considered him family. He maliciously spilled wine across the table. "Since it is not water, take a gulp," Jack mocked. Phelan recoiled in terror, nearly tumbling off his chair. The Marchioness exploded, screeching about his insolence and demanding how he dared to pull such a stunt. Jack simply turned his back, his message delivered. To him, her shrieks were nothing more than a stray dog barking. He exited into a heavy silence, certain his words would haunt the halls of this mansion for ages. Fueled by pure spite, the Marchioness vowed this disrespect would not stand, but Jack only laughed in her face. "I will be waiting," he teased, while her hysterical curses echoed through the heavy doors behind him. She was out for blood. In the corridors, maids whispered frantically, struggling to process the madness they had just witnessed. They focused on scrubbing the wine-stained cloth instead. Despite the woman's threats, the night passed in eerie silence. Nothing happened except for a scolding from Elizabeth. On departure morning, Jack marveled at how simple-minded they all were. The event preparations were hollow. Despite the flashy exterior, it was just a fancy place to sit and rot. Leading the march was Ryzen, a 6th Circle knight who watched Jack with deep, suspicious eyes. It felt like he was hiding a sinister scheme. To make matters worse, James was also joining the carriage ride. Anxious for his safety, Elizabeth offered to accompany him, but he shot her down. Her worry only intensified. Sensing his stepmother's trap, she insisted on going. But Jack, stubborn as always, told her to drop it. He promised things were changing for the better. Besides, he knew the family could not break her anymore. Dejected, she trailed him on horseback until Jack finally told her to turn back, questioning her persistence. "How much longer will you follow?" Elizabeth finally gave in, pleading with him to stay safe. Ron watched her leave with heavy eyes. The butler's voice trembled as he asked if the young master was truly sure. With the main house feeling like a tomb, his face mirrored Elizabeth's dread, earning him the same stoic answers. Jack reminded him of yesterday's vow, a task for today. That promise had haunted the servant all through the night. Along the path, Ryzen eyed their interactions with cold suspicion. Once Ron gave the signal, Jack insisted the butler watch over his sister, sending him away so she would not be left vulnerable. He obeyed, wishing him luck. The servant would track them from the shadows to see what went down. He treated today as a reward for the butler who had always bled for his sake. The cozy interior made him yawn, so Jack decided to catch some sleep during the long trek. Seeing him drift off, Ryzen's gaze turned icy, hiding a dark intent. The journey dragged on until twilight. He stayed passed out until the sky turned pitch black. Jack awoke, demanding why no one had bothered waking him. Spotting the servants setting up, he realized they were camping. James approached the brat, setting off Jack's alarm bells. Their eyes locked in a fierce standoff until Jack smirked. "So my little chick actually did it," he mused. He had snitched to the Marchioness. Now, surrounded by guards, Jack was pinned down with nowhere to run. With the trap sprung, Ryzen noted the Marquis would not be talking, but the kid urged him to at least try. He promised to listen well. The silver-haired man grinned, revealing their 4-day journey. To the academy involved camping every night. Oddly enough, Jack did not seem bothered at all. That was until the man shot him a pure psychopathic glare. The air turned bone-chilling under the moonlight as Jack's fate was sealed in that lonely camp. He cold-bloodedly promised to grind Jack's bones to dust every night, only to heal him with a recovery potion afterward. Jack didn't even flinch. Unfazed by the brutal explanation, he calmly told the man to keep going. Rasan revealed the Marchioness had one more twisted order. Since everyone knew about Jack's secret mana circle, she wanted it shattered completely. Hearing this, a chilling smirk stretched across that bastard's face. It definitely grabbed his attention. After all, destroying a mana circle was basically a slow death sentence. Even if he survived the reconstruction, the odds of regenerating his mana were literally 1 in 1,000. Worse yet, the sheer shock of the destruction could leave him paralyzed and bedridden for life. The villain sneered, claiming James had already spilled everything. Word was, Jack was a genius with the blade. He mocked Jack, saying that while others might be impressed, raw talent wouldn't change his fate here. He warned the boy not to struggle, as resisting would only make the agony much worse. But Jack knew this dark vibe all too well. Watching the terrified guards, he felt like he'd returned home. Deep down, he was still the legendary sword phantom, regardless of the peaceful life he tried to lead. Past scars burned in his soul. He looked at the butler and mentioned his 10-year imprisonment in the mountains. The guards were lost, but he continued speaking of the mysterious master who taught him every ultimate technique. Everything changed when he descended. His family and kingdom had already crumbled. Honestly, he didn't give a damn. His cold, calculated words left the guards baffled. They demanded to know what he was even yapping about. Jack didn't bother answering. Instead, he unsheathed his steel, his mind set on a specific goal. He thought of Elizabeth. She was brilliant and gifted. Surely she deserved a better fate than their family. Maybe she'd find a decent husband. Meanwhile, at the palace, the young lady stared at the sky, praying. She tried to believe her brother was safe. If she could just be happy, Jack would forgive everything. The men burst into laughter, taunting him. They thought he'd finally snapped from the overwhelming terror. They claimed resistance was futile in this trap, yet Jack kept stepping forward with a murderous glint. He whispered that revenge is a delicacy, a sweet, addictive poison that could drive any man into madness. He agreed with the captain on one thing: a mere spark of talent wouldn't save anyone's neck today. They thought he'd just endure Rasan's torture, but Jack began channeling every ounce of mana nearby. With eyes full of hate, he declared that his overwhelming power would be their absolute undoing. "Watch closely," Jack hissed. Suddenly, his mana circle erupted with the violent intensity of a hurricane. The captain mocked the pathetic display until he realized the kid in front of him was a monster. Panic set in. If he didn't stop this child now, every single guard would be wiped from existence. Jack unleashed a mana explosion so massive it could level a city. James instantly regretted his betrayal. Everyone usually bet on the second young master, treating Jack like the family's useless trash. But as time seemingly froze, the golden-haired captain realized his life was ending right then and there. Jack's blade finally shattered after the brutal slaughter. He loomed over the survivors, now completely broken. He called out to Ron, and the loyal servant emerged from the shadows of the nearby brush. Both men stood amidst the carnage, stunned by the sheer devastation Jack had wrought in seconds. Jack explained he'd used one of his transcendence techniques, the first of 8 legendary styles he'd mastered. Ron was speechless. He admitted he didn't know the full extent of the boy's terrifying growth. To him, that wasn't just swordsmanship. It looked like a divine art of pure, unadulterated mana. Jack played it off with a smirk, casually asking the old man for a healing potion instead. But Ron panicked when Jack began spitting out strawberry juice, which was definitely just straight-up blood. Even as he bled out, Jack insisted he was fine. He just wanted that damn potion already. The butler frantically handed over a vial, which Jack downed in a single desperate gulp. Ron scolded him instantly, warning that without that medicine, Jack would be knocking on death's door. Despite the lecture, Jack just laughed. He knew Ron always came prepared for a literal bloodbath. He already saw it coming. Ron would definitely burn a high-grade potion on him instead of hoarding it. Jack was certain because this loyalty had already been proven in the past. It was pure déjà vu. He vividly remembered collapsing into Ron's arms, the butler being the only soul who didn't abandon him. Drifting through a fever dream, Jack began rambling about how in their previous lives they had both been far too busy. They were always racing toward death, never sharing a single moment of truth. Now Jack looked at Ron and offered a sincere thank you. He winced at how harsh his words sounded, cursing his past self for being such a mindless, arrogant brat. Listening to the boy's cryptic confession, Ron realized the truth. Knowing the future was the ultimate cheat code Jack was hiding. This was the young master's hidden ace. Jack finally admitted he had regressed through time, a concept Ron understood perfectly. Jack braced himself to stand up. He was actually stunned by his own condition. He felt 10 times better than before. That potion was clearly the top-shelf stuff. He stood tall, reclaimed his sword, and threw his coat over his shoulders. The job was done, but Jack took one final icy look back to confirm that the little bird was truly erased. Planting his heel on the target's head, Jack mused about breaking the blonde noble and turning him into a lowly messenger boy. Ron noted that it was a solid strategic move, but Jack wasn't convinced. He knew the danger wasn't over yet. I never expected much from that loser anyway, Jack spat before shifting the conversation back to the complexities of time travel. He poked at the butler, asking if he wasn't even a little curious. He tried to think of a hook that would rattle Ron, but the butler remained a stone wall. Jack started dropping spoilers about his sister's fate and the downfall of the Marquis' house. Ron had already envisioned his own grim end. Just by reading the kid's expression, he knew the path ahead was stained with blood. He sensed the journey hadn't been pretty. Jack teased that he'd spill all the secrets, but only if Ron showed some genuine curiosity. He mocked the butler's stoicism, but the old man calmly explained that some things are deeper than just simple curiosity. This annoyed Jack to no end. "Stop being so obtuse," he barked. Then the real question dropped: what was Ron's own fate? Ron admitted he had his doubts, but figured he'd survive anyway. With a flicker of discomfort, the butler finally spoke up. He didn't think he was the type to die early, but his composure shattered when Jack described his exact final moments. That was precisely how he died. For the first time, the legendary butler felt a genuine chill of intrigue crawl down his spine. "Don't get all depressed on me now," Jack muttered, ending the heavy talk. He climbed into the carriage to escape the tension. He needed to crash for a bit. As Jack sprawled out on the seat, Ron moved like a shadow toward the perimeter. He approached a guard, who was miraculously still breathing. With a swift, silent motion, Ron put him into a permanent sleep. He wondered if sword was even the right word for a weapon that had just vaporized 25 elite knights. These were high-level warriors. Every single one had their heart pierced, yet there were no signs of a traditional blade strike. The wounds didn't match any known steel. Ron surveyed the carnage again, trying to decode the source of Jack's terrifying power. Looking at the bodies littering the dirt, he wondered what kind of hellish life the boy must have lived before. He worried if they'd truly make it. Suddenly, Jack bolted awake, drenched in a cold sweat and gasping for air. Ron's voice cut through the panic. He asked if the boy was really okay despite having consumed that high-grade potion. Realizing where he was, Jack dropped the act. He was still in massive pain, and Ron offered a knowing silent nod. The butler handed over a heavy pouch. He explained he'd taken the liberty of looting the fallen knights while Jack slept. He'd secured 5 premium potions, 63 gold pieces, and 40 common coins. It was a pretty successful raid. Jack was actually surprised. Even these mantis dogs were carrying around an absolute fortune in their pockets. He cinched the bag shut with a smirk. Ron then asked if he planned to down those potions right then and there. Jack shook his head. Using them now would be a total waste. He tossed 3 of the vials back to Ron instead. "Consider this interest for the potion you gave me," Jack said. Ron accepted the trade. His investment had just tripled. 1 high-grade potion had magically turned into 3. With a sharp look, Ron asked what the plan was for the mess outside. What about the corpses? Jack didn't care. He'd just leave them for the crows and the wild beasts to finish off. Let someone else find them. Ron warned that people would start looking at Jack with a lot of suspicion very soon. If he was the sole survivor, the heat would be on him. Jack just laughed, asking who would dare suspect him. He knew Ron meant the Marquis. Jack wasn't worried. Even if his father suspected the truth, the man couldn't touch him. He was untouchable. Ron countered that if he were the Lord, he'd be summoning Jack for a brutal interrogation immediately. He'd want answers right now. Jack flashed a devious grin and offered a bet, but Ron declined. He knew the kid would win. Defeat was inevitable. His master was simply too cunning. Kneeling before the boy, the blonde admitted he sensed a hidden spark of trust deep in Jack's heart. Jack nodded, confirming their meeting remained a total secret. No witnesses. To seal the deal, the mage revealed his masterstroke, a decoy left behind at the palace. It was likely still haunting the halls. This ninth circle illusion was basically a perfect living clone. Anyone strong enough to sniff out the fake was already knocked out cold. Pivoting, Jack warned that the high-ranking nobles would definitely start asking questions about today's chaos. If things get dicey, Ron had one job: blame Jack. But in the absolute worst-case scenario, if the Marquis tries to skin you alive, tell him, your family line ends the moment you or my sister die. Silence hung heavy until Ron confessed. His nerves were getting the better of him for no reason. Jack burst out laughing, teasing him for being so dramatic over a simple what-if scenario. For now, he just hoped the Marquis would step up as a real father. It was his final warning. Ron questioned if the academy was a must. Jack confirmed only to get grilled about his father's stance. Jack wasn't sweating it, though. Even that prestigious academy had strict protocols to follow. Once classes start, you're locked in unless the head of the family literally kicks the bucket. It was finally time for his loyal servant to depart. Ron's expression made it clear. He desperately wanted to join the chaos. That would have been wild, but the timing wasn't right. Thinking ahead, Jack warned his companion to stay sharp against any monsters lurking on the road home. Ron asked with a heavy heart if they'd truly be apart for 4 years. Jack couldn't say for sure. Still, he reiterated one thing: Ron must protect his sister just as he promised. Without Ron, a grueling trek lay ahead, requiring 3 nights of camping between the Marquis' estate and the academy. The journey meant 4 days on the main road, and another 4 traversing rugged mountain trails. But staring at the path, he realized the trail was surprisingly as smooth as a highway. Grabbing his luggage, he felt certain this was a sign of a nearby settlement. Jack attempted to mount his steed, but his tiny child's body made the task a frustrating ordeal. Finally in the saddle, they rode through a night so eerily still and silent. It was hard to believe a blood-soaked battle had raged just moments ago. Jack wasn't heading to school yet. His top priority was finding his mentor, Valentine Milos, the woman who gave him the power of vengeance. She turned him into a man of honor, despite being a forgotten master of the ultimate forbidden arts, a name whispered in fear by survivors. As he rode, he wondered why his heart was racing so intensely. Reaching the Arbella barony, a vassal territory, our protagonist spotted a cozy-looking inn at the town gates. He debated staying the night while 3 local kids chatted nearby with bright, happy smiles. Judging by their expressions, this place was a sanctuary. Stepping inside, he found a bustling crowd of travelers. He spotted a stray pup begging for scraps and sat at a corner table, giving the little guy a pat. He hoped for a quiet meal without any thugs picking a fight. Suddenly, a voice called out to him. A cheerful girl remarked how rare it was to see such a young traveler riding solo. She offered him food and a bed, though her rugged gear made her look more like a mercenary than a waitress. Ignoring her warrior-like appearance, Jack handed over 3 coins and requested a light, simple dinner. He ordered a drink and a room, asking her to carry his heavy blade upstairs for him. The woman took only 1 coin, insisting it was plenty, and promised to bring him a feast. Since he was a growing boy, she added some apple pie and steak with a warm, motherly smile. When asked if he wanted ale or milk, a flustered Jack quickly opted for the milk. She chuckled, telling him to play with Arnold the dog, while his meal was prepared. No one was trying to scam him, yet peace still reigned before the coming storm. The dog was pure energy. Jack whispered that the future was a mystery, sighing at the weight of the secrets he carried. Just then, some spicy tavern gossip from a nearby table caught his sharp ears. The men were whispering about a massive plan to wipe out monsters using a legion of mana users. One man scoffed, calling the operation a waste of time and wondering why the Tulkun Empire was stooping so low. Jack listened intently, his muscles tensing as the blond man voiced his blatant disgust with the crown. The Marquis had deployed the elite Iron Blood Knights straight into the heart of the Forest of Beasts. By the king's decree, every noble house had sent their private militias for this grand subjugation mission. The plan was to swarm the forest alongside mercenaries targeting the neutral zone within the Great Canyon. It looked like a normal woods, but it was a death trap crawling with savage ogres. Orcs, goblins, and even the legendary Imugi, a serpent destined to become a dragon, lurked in the shadows. Humans hunted them for troll blood and ogre tendons to forge legendary gear, while harpy feathers became high-end fashion. Even the elves were captured as exotic pets for noble ladies. It was pure, unadulterated human greed. Jack knew the grim truth: this entire campaign was destined to be a total bloody disaster. The Iron Blood Knights would lose 1/3 of their ranks in a single crushing defeat. Other noble armies fared even worse. That humiliation would eventually shatter the people's faith and spark a civil war. The man at the table slammed his fist down, shouting that the king was practically begging for trouble. He yelled that the king was overreaching, but his panicked friends quickly tried to shut him up. Treasonous talk in a public square was a one-way ticket to the gallows, no matter how true it was. The other patrons stared in disbelief, desperately hoping the man was just another loud-mouthed drunk. Jack realized this guy truly didn't give a damn about the consequences of his words. Countless heads had rolled for far less than insulting the royal bloodline. Jack snapped back to reality. They whispered his name across the table, the Marquis' third son. Rumors swirled that Jack had dabbled in forbidden magic. The thugs laughed it off, convinced the boy was nothing more than a brainless puppet. Fools. Jack's icy gaze pierced through them. They had no idea whose name they were dragging. The blonde sneered, questioning how a scrub learned dark arts when the master was a literal corpse. A woman cackled, calling him the Marquis' resident idiot. She figured he just tripped into some luck. The server returned, curious about the rowdy conversation. She sensed a strange tension coming from Jack. Jack realized he was smirking. The girl slid into the seat beside him, begging for the tea. She was bored out of her mind, and practically vibrating for a story to kill the time. Jack played it cool. Just heard the Marquis' third lord is a total joke, he lied. He confessed to eavesdropping, but the woman didn't care. People always judge based on half-baked rumors. He challenged her perspective. She smiled, explaining she only trusts what her own eyes witness. Jack countered that sometimes rumors hold a grain of truth. She nodded, letting the silence hang. Jack aggressively stuffed a piece of cake into his mouth, ending the debate right there. It wasn't his butler's 5-star cooking, but for a backwater tavern it was straight fire. She decided to drop the subject, but left Jack with one final lingering thought. If the young lord was as handsome as the rumors claimed, she doubted he was a fool. That hit Jack like a physical blow. He finally took a good look at her. She had a scarred cheek, a warrior's build, and a room full of mercenaries as regulars. "You're the branch manager for the local adventurers guild, aren't you, Jack?" called her out. He caught her off guard. She gave a shy, knowing grin. His intuition was sharper than a blade. Mercenaries were everywhere in these parts, hired swords, monster hunters, and drifters looking for a payday. Every contract flowed through local guilds, which were almost always hidden inside busy inns. Jack realized her secret. Running both an inn and a guild branch meant she was double jobbing. Either that or she had way too much free time on her hands. She admitted work was slow in a peaceful territory like Arbello. She needed the extra gold. This inn was actually a front, a dedicated safe house for the Adventurers Guild. Jack found her audacity impressive. He was the Marquis' idiot, but he wasn't exactly a celebrity. Yet she had identified him in this remote hole. How did a small-town manager know his face? The answer clicked. It wasn't fame or magic, it was something far more practical. He finally understood how she'd spotted him the second he crossed the town border. Earlier, Jack had promised his escort they'd find a settlement to rest their weary heads. At the gates, 2 guards blocked him, demanding his business and checking for companions. Jack didn't waste words. He simply flashed his family crest, the ultimate golden ticket. The guards nearly fainted. They bowed instantly, terrified of disrespecting the Marquis' bloodline. They ushered him in with trembling respect. Back at the bar, Jack connected the dots. The guards had snitched. Jack warned her, contacting private soldiers without permission was a death sentence. She just laughed. To her, this terrifying noble was actually kind of cute for worrying. Jack smirked. At least she was treating him with more humanity than his own family. His brother and the knights had tried to erase him. This stranger was a breath of fresh air. He thanked her and reached out. She took his hand, introducing herself as Jane Arbello. That name sent a jolt through him. It was the name of the very territory they stood on. Jane was the lord's sister, a high-born noble living the rugged life of a mercenary. Most noble girls were sold off like trophies, but Jane had chosen the path of the blade. She loved the grind, and surprisingly, her family actually supported her wild lifestyle. They were nothing like Jack's toxic household. For the first time, he felt a sting of envy. All he noted was the mansion's massive scale. Jane whistled for the pup, and the two began to romp around together. She pressed on, curious why a young lord from the Marquis' house was roaming such a place, solo and unguarded. He quipped that an idiot doesn't need a bodyguard. It was a witty, unexpected comeback that confirmed her hunch about him. He was nothing like the rumors. Jack admitted he still had a grueling, long journey ahead of him. He revealed his plan, hiring 5 seasoned guards who excelled at both rugged camping and outdoor cooking. His offer was legendary, 2 gold coins up front and 3 upon arrival. Jane's eyes practically turned into gold. She was stunned by his generosity. Normally, standard escort missions for merchants were far less lucrative. Those usually cost 30 silver coins. In this realm, it took 100 silvers to equal a single gold piece. Silver was peanuts compared to his offer. Jane promised to have the entire crew prepped by dawn. When she asked about lodging and food, he casually tossed 3 gold coins her way, without a second thought. He told her to handle the logistics and snag a solid carriage. The kid was a total high-roller client. She told him to relax, swearing she'd handpick only the most elite veterans for the job. Handing him the key, Jack felt at ease. With a sharp boss like her running things, he felt safe. Jack collapsed onto his bed the second he walked in. He planned on bathing, but pure exhaustion won. He drifted off instantly. Suddenly, he woke up in a dark, damp cave bound in heavy, cold chains. A voice mocked his weakness as he sobbed. "Are you going to stay helpless forever?" the figure asked. Tears blurred his vision. Kindness wasn't a crime, but in this woman's eyes, being incompetent was a death sentence. She offered him a choice: change or rot. With a shaky, trembling voice, the boy chose to evolve. The green-haired woman pulled him into an embrace. "From today on, I am your master," she declared. Jack bolted upright, drenched in sweat. Just a nightmare, a ghost from his brutal training days with his master. Morning light flooded the room, but he had no time to think before Jane burst in like a whirlwind. She chirped a greeting while Jack shouted about privacy. Right on her heels was Arnold, the pup who lunged at him with a flurry of excited licks. Jack eventually grabbed his gear and headed down, yawning loudly. Jane teased him, claiming he must have slept like a baby to be this groggy. She'd hooked him up with a top-tier ride and introduced the specialized squad assigned to protect him. Every one of them was a battle-hardened vet. Ironically, the crew included the same thugs who'd been talking smack. Looking totally humiliated, the leader of the Fire Ant mercenaries stepped forward to face Jack. He introduced himself as John Doe. Jack blinked, totally thrown off by the weird generic alias. John smirked, explaining it's a name reserved for unidentified corpses. He was lying through his teeth. But Jack just shrugged and shook his hand, calling it a fun name while playing along with the charade. The trek to the Rocky Mountains would be a grind, requiring several nights of camping under the stars. John pointed out his buddies were former chefs and camping pros, the very definition of seasoned veterans. Jack didn't care about the details. He just wanted comfort, so the young master tossed his luggage to the leader. He told them to move it since he was beat. The escort team finally set off into the distance. Before leaving, Jack noted how entertaining the hire was. Jane just smirked, confirming his veteran status. But these weren't ordinary sellswords. Ron was a hidden Ninth Circle monster, masking his true power and identity. Then there was Joe Nobody, an Eighth Circle powerhouse hiding his strength for absolutely no real reason. Jane teased him about wanting experts, but Jack just brushed her off with a knowing smirk. He predicted their paths would cross again soon. Jane promised that next time the drinks were on her. Jack winked back, saying he'd consider it if she covered the final round of beers. He finally hit the road. Jane watched him go, feeling a strange fondness for the little master. Jack lounged in the carriage. It wasn't a palace, but it got the job done, under the beautiful sun. Feeling refreshed, he played with the pup until he noticed Joe burning a hole through him with a stare. Wondering what the deal was, Jack stood up, locking eyes with the blonde mercenary to grill him. He asked if the guy knew his true identity. Stuttering John claimed he only knew Jack was highborn. Jack plays dumb, urging him to continue. The blonde mentions the manager saw him as a world traveler. The protagonist admits his curiosity about Jane. The man tells him to ask anything he wants. Suddenly, Jack reveals a pocket watch, engraved with his family crest. Upon seeing it, the man asks if it's a noble seal. Jack senses the guy knows exactly what it is. Though the memory is hazy, he explains a stupid Marquis once lived nearby. The Volunteer house was doomed to fall, and that crest was their mark. His words drop like a bomb, silencing them. Jack notes someone there was called an idiot. Smirking, he asks if the blonde knows about that idiot who was once arrested. His subtle pressure makes the man tremble to his very core. Finally, his cover is blown. Jack's explanation was just too perfect to ignore. Rumors claimed he used forbidden magic after his release from prison. Sensing the man's tension, Jack asks why he isn't laughing like yesterday. The guy stammers an apology. Honestly, Jack wasn't entirely wrong about the forbidden arts. His master was at the absolute peak of forbidden sorcery. Even as a swordsman, he knew the craft. But why use it when his fists worked fine? When he addresses Joe Donati, the man jumps in visible panic. Jack asks why he stayed silent while his friend talked trash about him. He defended the king but ignored Jack's honor, acting deeply hurt by the situation. Everyone is confused except the leader, who fakes an excuse about being uninformed. The manager must have hidden Jack's identity. Regardless, he asks to move past it. Joe agrees to stick together, though the atmosphere remains heavy and tense. By the campfire, they dismiss the rumors. Jack is genuinely surprised by the conversation. The blonde notes Jack isn't like typical clean-handed nobles. Seeing him wash dishes was a total plot twist. The meal was legendary. With a full stomach, peace feels perfect except for the memory of Ron. Poor Ron must be suffering. Jack calls himself a true foodie for this trade. Jack asks about the night watch, and they explain it's all down to luck. They jokingly offer him a shift, which makes Jack pout. A kid needs his sleep to grow. Jack asks if they'll take the blame if he stays short. Better to forget it. They start swapping stories to kill the boredom. Jack asks the ultimate question: how many dragons actually exist in this world? The group recalls the founding king, who supposedly wiped them all out. It was a centuries-old legend of the founding kingdom. Julius Teslin crushed the dragons, conquered the West, and forged an empire. Eventually, that empire shrank into a kingdom under the Tolkien Empire. That's the history everyone knows. But Jack reveals there are 2 dragon lords, 1 baby dragon in the palace, and 5 in the forest of magic beasts. 8 are roaming free. Since they can shapeshift, there are at least 16 on this continent. They clearly don't buy it. Dragons are just fairy tales to them. No one has ever seen one. Jack just chuckles at their disbelief. He asks if the story isn't actually entertaining. Dragons can't mingle with humans due to a pact protecting their very existence. Joe asks if that means the king didn't actually slay them all. Exactly. He didn't kill a single dragon. He just wanted a chance to negotiate. Truthfully, 2 nameless allies did the heavy lifting, but he keeps that secret. Chilling with the escorts, one soldier asks what the heck they're doing. Jack drops a bombshell. Their known continent is just a fragment of the actual world. It's only the western side. Beyond the sea, everything is different, except for the dragons. The hatchling reveals dragon lords have one job guarding the Black Sea barrier. Joe nobody questions it. But the little guy is clueless on details, only knowing it's an ancient wall dividing continents. Basically, dragon lords inherited this eternal watch. Honestly, Jack was hyped to see the East. After all that yapping, the inevitable happened. The group just couldn't help themselves. They burst out laughing at his wild claims. A blonde mercenary calls Jack a legendary storyteller. He jokes Jack hired them just for an audience. Jack smirks, fully aware they're calling cap. He knew they wouldn't buy it. Rising, the youth declares their belief doesn't change reality. As he heads to the carriage, the mercenary asks if he's turning in. Jack needs a bath first. They offer a guard, but Jack declines, wanting some solo spa time. Stepping into the water, our hero exhales. Those loudmouths didn't buy his story, which felt kinda weird to him. He spoke the truth, yet they laughed. Overpowered main characters hiding their peak status is mid anyway. Soaking in the hot springs, Jack ponders. Was Joe Nobody actually a Tolkien Empire spy? It felt off. Even that branch manager was acting sus when you really think about it. The puzzle pieces just weren't clicking. He'd asked Jane for basic mercenary escort help, but finding a hidden 8th Circle mana user under an alias, that's next level suspicious. An 8th Circle powerhouse is a god-tier asset anywhere. Even the Ironblood Knight Captain is one. Someone like that would be a VIP globally. Yet, here he was, leading a low-tier mercenary squad. Something was definitely rotting beneath the surface. Instead of overthinking, Jack focused on recovery, circulating his mana through the warm water. He'd mostly healed from the soul speech backlash during the long carriage ride. This should be easy. Only his master's location mattered now. But with Joe being a possible spy, Jack couldn't take any risks. If Joe was compromised, he had to confront him now. Returning to the fire, the men are stunned by his lightning-fast bath. Sword in hand, Jack explains he's too on edge to relax. He couldn't even finish his soak. They ask what's wrong. Jack takes it as an insult. Are they really this clueless? He levels his blade at one man. This guy was annoying, but then he stares at Joe. Why is an 8th Circle beast working as a merc? Jack reveals his destination is top secret. He won't travel with someone hiding their true identity and power. It's too risky. The blonde guy steps up for his bro. Wait, my boss is 8th Circle. No way. But Joe cuts him off. Assuming he actually is that powerful, Joe asks Jack, "What's your move then?" Jack smirks. Since he told a wild story, it was Joe's turn. He wanted a legendary tale from the man standing right in front of him. Joe asks what happens if he stays silent. Jack brings the edge: closer talk or be food. Or are you just another Tolkien spy? Jack asks, making one mercenary physically tremble. He drops a hint. Jane promised him a drink next time, but why trust a spy? The leader's face goes stone cold. Why was the kid mentioning Jane all of a sudden? The main character asks if he's still in the dark. Don't you want to know? If her final meal will be that beer, smiling innocently, he asks Joe's opinion. Joe Nobody finally admits this situation is getting spicy. He looks amused. The atmosphere turns razor sharp. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut. Jack pushed him to the edge, yet Joe's mana didn't flinch. Is he cautious or hesitating? Lucky man, Jack whispers. I'm not grade-welding back my strength. Restraint was no longer an option. He'd strike the moment that circle flickered. It was a binary choice, breathe or bleed. He granted a 60-second grace period, hoping the man chose wisely. Yesterday, back at Jane's tavern, the vibe was different. She'd whispered to Joe about Jack's allure. The boy was nothing like the weakling the rumors suggested. Shadows danced behind the boy's eyes, hiding deep secrets. It was her call to assign Joe as his personal shield. A kid like this could flip their world. Who could look at those sharp eyes and call him slow? Left behind because of her. Now Joe, Nobody felt a crushing weight of dread in his gut. Like a gazelle facing a lion, his instincts screamed, danger. This kid was a literal predator in human skin. Something didn't click. How did this brat sniff out his 8th Circle rank to begin with? Did Jane spill the beans? No, Joe killed the thought. She was solid and wouldn't leak his secrets. He'd have sensed any slip-ups. Meanwhile, the boys' countdown hit 40 seconds. The tension reached its peak. The man finally cracked. He dared the kid to land a hit on an actual 8th Circle master. He studied the boy, mesmerized by that savage, piercing gaze. It wasn't natural for a child to look so lethal. But he didn't flinch. This wasn't a kid. Beside him, his friend was shaking, begging for the truth. Joe was lost for words. He felt like he was standing in the open mouth of a massive beast. Years of mercenary blood and hard choices flashed before him like a dying man's dream. Luck had always been his ally. He decided to bet everything on his raw mercenary gut feeling. Time had evaporated. Since they weren't satisfied, they were ready to wipe him off the map. Before the boy could lunge, Joe spoke. He threw a curveball, asking about Jane's current situation. He needed to know Jack's reach. Joe's past was a cliché, a noble lady falling for a lowborn. It's a tale as old as time. He met Jane at 19 as a 7th Circle mage. It was instant lightning. Since that day, their bond had only deepened into something unbreakable. No shocker there. But a hidden hurdle kept them from actually tying the knot and marrying. Even with the class divide, an 8th Circle powerhouse should hold massive political sway. A mercenary life felt beneath him. Jack suspected the leader was running from some messy drama. Maybe her family was blocking them. That woman's pride probably kept her from asking for help. Jack pushed harder. Was Jane just a lowly branch manager of some backwater territory? And was Joe just a merc chasing a payday? Was he just using her for profit? Joe nodded, confirming the cold reality. The truth was out, but Jack wasn't buying it yet. Trust was a luxury, a story that generic could be cooked up in seconds to hide the truth. Staring Joe down, Jack dropped a bomb. What's the Empire doing with that baby dragon? Joe scoffed. Why ask about fairy tales? Jack just smirked, knowing he'd struck a major nerve. He explained that master means 10 circles, but even those legends are blind to what's beyond. Further lies transcendence. Monsters there wield soul power instead of mana. It's a completely different league. The guards were floored. Only Joe Nobody kept his poker face perfectly intact during the reveal. Jack continued his lore drop. In 2 years, Hans von Beckermann will become the continent's apex swordsman. He'll rewrite history, embodying the power of the forgotten transcendence from the shadows. But here's the kicker. That bastard didn't reach that peak through his own hard work alone. The story grew darker. Intrigued, Joe leaned in, signaling for the boy to keep going. Jack revealed the secret: the swordsman swapped his blood and bones for those of a dragon. He became a freak, neither man nor beast. Joe's face paled as the shock hit the room. Hybridization was pure insanity. Joe demanded to know how this related to their current mess. Jack clarified. Tolkien's Imperial House only has one dragon. Even immortals have limits in a lab. One specimen isn't enough for experiments. They've sent agents across borders as scouts. Phase 1, intel gathering. Phase 2, hunt for more dragons. Joe suddenly burst out laughing. He cackled, mocking the story. That's a hell of a script for a work of fiction. Ignoring the other sellswords, the boy knew they wouldn't believe a word of this man's wild tale. Judging by the look on his face, Joe, Nobody wasn't a spy. He crossed his arms, asking if the suspicion had finally faded. The boy nodded mockingly, wishing him a happy life with the guild manager and telling him not to forget the wedding invite. Suddenly, something shifted. Jack sensed a threat and instantly swung his blade behind him. Joe, Nobody, with a sharp edge pressed against his jugular, was caught red-handed, trying to draw his weapon first. Jack made it clear he was only showing mercy because he was the one who doubted the man initially. He leaned in, whispering, a chilling warning: this was his last chance. If that bloodlust flared again, he'd turn everyone present into literal dust. The entire group trembled in fear, desperately pleading for both men to lower their steel and just talk it out. Jack tried to maintain a connection with the squad, but the damage was done. It was already too late. The boss-employee dynamic was officially a mess. After the chaos, Jack retreated to the carriage to sleep it off. While he rested, the men gossiped. They wondered why someone with the talent to lead a noble's private army chose the mercenary life. The blonde leader recalled their first meeting. Jack claimed he was only 4th Circle, a lie that still stung. But since they'd survived years of battle together and Jack had saved his life, he couldn't stay mad at his first true friend. Having an 8th Circle powerhouse around was a massive flex, potentially making their crew the strongest on the entire continent. With that kind of heat, the leader could become a mercenary king. Joe didn't doubt that peak was within reach. He chuckled at how his comrades treated it like a joke, knowing an 8th Circle monster would never settle for being a mere king. There were 4 legendary masters out there, but he shook off the thought rather than arguing with his old partner. A rookie in the group asked if the rumors were actually true, and the leader gave a grim confirmation. Seeing their shock, the blonde man calmed them, noting that everyone has secrets they aren't ready to share. Still, he wondered why the captain hadn't reacted. Memories of their clash flooded back, making him break out in a cold sweat. Even now, his hands wouldn't stop shaking. That terrifying brush with death felt way too real to ignore. He wouldn't admit it, but he nearly pissed himself. Just as Jane warned, the boy was as fascinating as he was lethal. The continent was already bleeding from the Tolkien Empire's succession war, but this felt different. Spies, dragons, and shadows. It all felt like a bad omen. Days later, while riding in the carriage, Jack smirked and asked if they wanted to hear another interesting story. The mercenaries immediately tensed up, fearing whatever bombshell he was about to drop. He asked them, "How much do you actually know about the Forest Lord?" They figured it was just another Ninth Circle beast, a common legend among those who hunt magical monsters. But Jack revealed the truth: it's actually 10th Circle. They were floored, but he promised everything would make sense soon. He wanted to dig into the past. Jack's words piqued their interest as he rewound time 23 years. Back when whispers of the Forest Lord and the Harpy Queen first began, the mercenaries admitted they'd never heard that specific legend, so Jack explained the ancient blood-soaked history between the orcs and the harpies. They'd go to war over the smallest slight. Any merc entering that forest knew those two races were the undisputed titans of the woods, its true guardians. Jack then dropped a shocker: the Harpy Queen and the Orc King were actually in a secret relationship. Hard to believe, but they started as peaceful neighbors, until Blackman ascended as the Orc Lord and flipped the script. 5 years later, the real trouble started brewing. The boy grinned as the men leaned in. When the secret romance between Blackman and the Harpy Lord leaked, a violent revolt erupted. Jack noted that humans, harpies, and orcs are all the same when it comes to greed and betrayal. Traitors used the forbidden love as an excuse to seize power, but their coup failed, and the rebels were brutally purged. Joe. Nobody asked why their relationship remained so toxic today, if the traitors were gone. Jack explained that Blackman and Valea chose their people over their hearts, choosing prosperity over their tragic love. It made sense, but they left behind a legacy of pure hatred. The leader wasn't sure what to believe, though he remembered that harpies and orcs used to be far less aggressive decades ago. Suddenly, they evolved, becoming the dominant predators of the forest. The protagonist continued revealing that the harpies actually mastered orcish combat techniques, while the orcs secretly learned the high-level spirit magic that was once exclusive to the harpy race. This deadly trade was only possible because their leaders once chose to bridge the gap. They're now the forest's ghosts. If Joe Nobody gets caught, Jack suggests spinning this exact survival tale. It might stop them from killing him instantly. Seeing the boy's angelic face, the man agrees to try. Anyway, he offers Jack some jerky and he gladly devours it. Jane's cooking was top tier. Far away in the Marquis' palace, the Lord receives shocking news: the third young master's escort was ambushed. His entire force was slaughtered in the mountains, right near Arvelo. Informants claim expert investigators found traces of high-tier magic at the scene. This sends the Lord into a blind rage. It happened while his Iron Blood Knights were away. He suspects the king or the duke, fearing a third hidden threat. He barks orders at Gonzalez to dig deeper, and he nods in silent compliance. The elder hesitates, questioning Jack's whereabouts, since his body was never found. This implies the boy might have escaped with secrets the Lord needs to know. Gonzalez is granted full authority to extract answers before the redhead vanishes for good. The Lord admits he once thought his son was useless, but perhaps he was wrong. The informant stares intensely, before leaving to ponder the truth. The next morning, the group reaches the entrance of Rocky Mountain. Jack hands a heavy coin pouch to Joe Nobody, leaving the man absolutely stunned by the sheer amount. Shaking as he takes it, he claims it's too much, but Jack insists he only needs 10 gold coins and some healing potions. The rest is theirs. With a kind smile, the boy thanks them for making the trip exciting and apologizes for doubting Joe Nobody. But now, it's time to part ways, so he wishes them a safe return. Yet the men linger, prompting Jack to ask why they haven't left. Joe Nobody admits he's overstepping but asks for permission to speak. Once granted, he claims the mercenary life isn't as bad as Jack thinks. Jack is baffled by the suggestion, but the man pushes on. He's seen how young lords without support usually end up in this world. A third young master of a noble house being completely isolated is both strange and dangerous. Jack asks if he's suggesting he join them. Joe Nobody grips his shoulders, insisting the job isn't so bad. By dodging death-defying missions, he could travel and live comfortably. Jack glances at the others, knowing they're clueless about what Joe Nobody understands all too well. They had clashed that night. Had the boy truly wanted to, he could have crushed him without even breaking a sweat. The elder knew this, which made it even more tragic that such talent wouldn't become a mercenary. As he recognized Jack's genius better than anyone, he admits to forgetting his past in a world where he first gripped a sword to survive. He'd hidden his power from everyone. Though painful to admit, he takes the blame. Jack thanks him, but decides to ignore the offer, seeing that Joe Nobody is cut from a different cloth. Jack hints at a massive future event coming to the west in a few years, warning the man to go into hiding. The mercenary is left baffled. Jack explains he won't get it now, but he'll feel it when the time comes. An overwhelming, crushing sensation that forces one to run. Handing over the gold, Jack warns him not to gamble his life, for gold survival is the ultimate prize. The man agrees. Seeing the lesson sink in, the boy is satisfied. Before departing, he gives a friendly pat on the shoulder. He tells them to stay safe before venturing into the woods alone. Joe, nobody asks for his true name. Jack chuckles, knowing the man suspected the truth, and introduces himself as Jack. Just Jack, no titles attached. Seizing the moment, the boy asks for Joe, nobody's real name, who hesitates before revealing it. His name is Danastismo. Then, the boy remarks that if fate allows, they'll cross paths again. Finally, Jack presses on, crossing a massive bridge and using mana to boost his speed. Passing giant boulders, he senses his goal. Relying on his youthful stamina to keep moving, he's not as agile as before, stopping to catch his breath. Entering a cave, he summons a monosphere to light the path, confirming he's found the spot. Now, he just needs to breach the stone wall to reach his master, just like last time. Reaching this place was a pure stroke of luck born from his escape and soul-crushing exhaustion. Jack cracks open a flash vial, drenching the wall with a steady two-handed grip. Clutching his hilt, he prepared for the final price, drawing his palm across the razor-sharp edge. A necessary blood offering. Jack stared at the steel, fully aware this small ritual carried immense weight. Before regressing to age 17, Jack's entire existence was nothing but running and hiding in shadows. Just like his past life, even after losing Ron, back then, escape felt like his only reality. His trembling hands barely managed the ritual, as he wept with the raw vulnerability of a child. For a weakling like him, unsealing this stone cavern was miraculous. Now history was repeating itself, but this time everything changes. Crossing the threshold, Jack descended the glowing stairs with absolute resolve. Lantern in hand, nerves gnawed at him. After over a decade, the tension was suffocatingly real. Since his final visit, he reached the bottom and collapsed to his knees at the sight. There she was, his master shackled as before, her eyes snapping wide at the boy's call. Jack wondered if true immortality belonged to all life, or just the elite few at the top. From monsters to emperors, all eventually rot. Death is the one absolute law of this universe. That grim reality applied even to the woman before him, despite her godlike singular powers. His ancient master had endured 400 years by severing her soul from her physical vessel. A fragile magic anchored them together, but even that legendary sorcery was finally hitting its limit. He met her at age 10, but the stakes shifted. Now, she had barely 13 years left. He stood before his shackled doll-like master as she rasped, "Did you truly call for me?" "Master," he choked out, overwhelmed. He'd craved that voice for an eternity of crushing nostalgia. Intrigued by the mysterious boy, she politely asked if she should take a guess at his identity. The doll questioned if this was some sick prank, demanding to know exactly who he was. No third chances for introductions. Chuckling, he noted her legendary temper had only gotten sharper with time. He confessed how much he missed her, leaving the ancient sorceress spiraling in utter confusion. Meeting a stranger claiming to be her student was amusing. When asked if he recognized her, Jack nodded. How could he forget his most precious bond? Their shared time was his most guarded treasure. It wasn't just a dream. Even if he alone remembered, those memories burned vividly in his heart. He introduced himself as the hero who shattered the age of glory to birth the era of humanity. He told Valentine Milos, the grand sorceress, that he was her disciple from the future. She was floored. From the future, she loathed storytellers. When she asked why, Jack already knew the answer. He stated stories always warp the cold truth with biased, subjective perspectives. Annoyed, she labeled him a gifted liar and challenged him to predict her next words. Facing such absurdity, she doubted his claims, as the atmosphere between them grew dangerously thick. Jack simply muttered, "Get lost." That was exactly the dismissal she was famous for. Impressed by his perfect mimicry, she joked that the kid truly had a knack for narration. He could go pro, which stung Jack's pride. When he called her mistress, she instantly corrected him. She served no one. Her sharp tongue confirmed it. She hadn't changed a bit over the centuries. Realizing talk was cheap, Jack stood up, ready to act with lightning-fast precision. He leveled his blade at the chained woman, apologizing for the insolence required to save her. Staring down his steel, she realized Jack was actually wielding the legendary soul aura. He admitted his disrespect but promised to accept any punishment once his task was complete. Panic flared as she warned him. Shattering those chains would bring the entire cavern crashing down. Jack knew. That's exactly why he moved to break them, approaching the legendary teacher of Julius Teslin. The so-called hero Julius promised to return for his master, but that vow was a lie. It took 50 years for her to realize that Coward had abandoned her. Jack moved instantly. He shattered the dragon bone chains holding her. Valentine screamed as she felt herself plummeting. Jack catches her just in time, swearing he's nothing like that absolute trash Julius. He's all about action, not just talk. Memories sting her eyes, but a sudden collapse ends the moment. The ceiling crumbles from the blast and Jack yells to hold on tight. He begins weaving the earth. Unleashing 4 techniques, Wind Mountain and Flaming Forest, he shields the woman in his strong arms. A mana explosion erupts powerful enough to shatter mountains. Shaken, his master demands his true name. Deeply impressed, Jack insists he's merely her disciple because that's the only thing that truly matters. Age and origins mean nothing. She's shocked that a kid masters soul energy with such deadly precision. Jack jokes about being a disciple from the future, revealing the destiny waiting for them both. After 13 years of journeying together, she leans in, searching his gaze for any hidden lies. Softening her tone, she asks if he really time-traveled. Jack explains it was more of a regression. It was a leap through time. Sensing she finally trusts him, Jack's strength fades, and he collapses. Before celebrations start, his master warns that forced bonds never work, but Jack has his answer ready. Without his intervention, they'd have no bond at all. To her, this hardly feels like a relationship. Valentine notes he's quite the talker for someone in such agony. Then she drops a heavy question. Who do you think I got this stubbornness from? Jack formally introduces himself, vowing to serve her again. He will follow her lead. 5 days later in Arsenball, Jack wonders why his master remains so quiet. Is she still sorting through the chaos? Or has she simply decided to shut him out? Or did she just choose silence? At first, she suspected he was a descendant of House Teslan, but it's impossible no one his age should wield soul aura. Jack begins explaining the nature of soul power. He stops halfway, waiting for her to finish. One wrong answer, and Jack knew he'd be punished. Just like his past life, he explains this power belongs only to the elite mana masters. His master confirms it, but notes his soul energy is freakishly abnormal. Jack can't help but smirk. Though he wants to discuss the past, Valentine's silence stops him. She sees his hands harbor dark energy. It's even darker than hers, shocking even Jack. She asks if he's wondered why he got this chance. Why a regression? He'd spent 5 days trying to guess what was swirling in her mind. But she just wants to understand the time leap. Dark memories of slaughtering villages resurface in his mind, massacring entire towns without mercy. Jack admits he's wondered why, but honestly he has no clue. Why was he granted this grace? Seeing his grim expression, she tells him to drop the serious face. He didn't choose to regress. If someone granted this gift, there must be a grand purpose. Someday that person will appear. Until then, he'll just live. This time with her is everything. Secrets aside, being here matters most. His master admits he's quite the smooth talker. His words are charming. She asks about his plans and Jack reveals he needs a loyal partner. He needs someone he can trust. The night he saved Valentine, he fell deathly ill. After chugging 2 high-level potions in secret, he still danced with death for days. His body broke. He desperately needed a guardian, someone to be his literal arms and legs when he couldn't move. For now, it's just shopping. He needs a blade, but a girl suddenly charges through screaming. She slams into them, scattering her flower basket. She blurts out an apology, claiming she's in a rush. Jack asks if she's okay. Suddenly it clicks. He just said he needed a loyal companion. Right here stood a perfect candidate. As she frantically gathers her flowers, Jack makes his move. He asks if she'll be his wife. This wild proposal leaves the poor girl completely stunned. Jack offers his entire pouch as payment, but she flat out refuses the excessive gold. It's too much. She explains that a single coin would have been more than enough. That was the exact value of her flower basket. Stunned Jack can only watch her. He settles the bill, and she hands him the entire bouquet before vanishing into the crowd. With a quick bow, she leaves Jack speechless. His master notes she hasn't seen a night being in ages. Jack gave a robotic nod. Then his gaze sharpened as he turned to interrogate his master with newfound intensity. To the naked eye, the girl looked ordinary. Valentine stood there dazed, wondering why he'd even bothered with her. But Jack sensed her hidden truth. He'd handpicked her for one reason, the raw potential to reach the legendary 10th circle. Under his guidance, her power would explode. Valentine felt like a fool for missing such a blatant spark. She clearly had a long way to go. Jack just chuckled, challenging his master to spill all her secrets. Even after his regression, things remained unchanged. Yet the green-haired master couldn't shake this unsettling, eerie feeling. The boy felt hauntingly familiar. Suddenly, a flash of a blood-blonde girl surfaced from her deepest memories. A girl dancing in a hidden garden. The puzzle pieces clicked, and the reality of the situation finally hit home. To think a noble was rotting in this dump. Jack focused, planning his next move once the errands were finished. A high-value target was waiting. These night creatures possessed a terrifying strength that rivaled even the mighty dragons. As the clerk droned on, Jack's mind drifted back to the bloody war from 10 years ago. It started when vampires tried to break out of the monster forest. They lost, but several shadows slipped away during the chaos. This girl was likely the child of a runaway. Honestly, Jack didn't give a damn about her bloodline or history. Vampire or not, he didn't care. The clerk kept glazing his sword choice, and the constant yapping was starting to tick him off. He shut her up and finalized the deal. Then he dropped a bombshell on his master. His first subordinate was already chosen. She questioned his sanity for picking a monster. But Jack simply shrugged, reminding her that children aren't their parents' mistakes. The past's sins don't belong to the innocent. His master claimed he was just making excuses to justify a reckless choice. That actually got a laugh out of him. Ages ago, she'd forged a peace treaty with the kings of every race. Even the dragons signed it. The rules were simple: non-humans stay out of mortal affairs. Period. End of story. Every beast retreated to the enchanted woods. But that was 400 years ago, ancient history by now. Most of those kings are long dead. Even though the contract expired, the creatures were still trapped like caged animals. The dragons were still playing warden. With 2,000-year lifespans, they kept everyone under their giant scaly thumbs. Driven by the memory of her own chains, the master knew this was the only path forward. Jack's solution: total dragon extinction. He'd done it once in his past life, and he'd do it again. He'd hunt them down one by one. As he watched the vampire girl, his resolve only hardened. A merchant casually patted the girl's head, catching Valentine's eye. She immediately spotted the jagged scars marking his hands. Jack told her to chill. There was no need for guilt. He already had the full picture of the situation. He didn't need every detail, regardless of what the world thought he was, her loyal disciple until the end. She gave him the green light to act, but added a weird warning. Never let the blonde girl touch his juice. He was baffled. She was just a kid, and kids deserve treats, not some random strict dietary bans. The girl was still blushing over Jack's kindness. She carefully balanced a cup of orc juice for her sick mother. Disease was taking its toll. Her mom's golden rule: never ever touch a drop of cumin juice, especially if her uncle offered it. She scanned the room, wondering if he'd show up today and make his presence known. Silence filled the air. She crept toward her mother's bedside, whispering softly to see if she was still awake. Her mom's voice was a faint rasp. She croaked out a warning about a visitor, but the girl saw nothing but shadows. Then she saw Jack. Her hands shook, splashing juice everywhere. Meanwhile, Valentine loomed over the sick woman with a cold command: "Show yourself." The woman complied, revealing hauntingly pale blue eyes. It had been an eternity since they last met. The sorceress's whisper cut the air. The woman stared back, absolutely paralyzed by the shock of seeing her again. How could a legend rot in this dump? This was Vivienne de Royale, the noble vampire progenitor, now a mere shadow of herself. Outside, the girl played with birds, while Jack looked bored out of his mind. Still, his ears remained glued to the conversation inside. Jack kept his guard up. Inside, Vivienne eyed Valentine, suspiciously wondering if this newcomer was some high-rank vampire hunter. Valentine was low-key offended she wasn't recognized. She dropped her name like a bomb: Valentine Milos. That single name sent a violent shiver down Vivienne's spine. It was her, the woman from the legends. This was the mortal enemy who had imprisoned the entire vampire race. Vivienne's voice cracked her terror on full display. She tried to act tough, but a violent cough shattered her poise. Valentine didn't flinch, stating coldly that she was cursed. Now she only walks as a human once a month. No games. She asks why a royal vampire would live like this. She's in a pitiful state. Seeing Vivienne hasn't tasted blood in centuries, Valentine demands the truth behind her condition. The vampire asks Valentine if she actually feels pity for her, a total irony before adding more. Back then, the mage was so legendary that she never would have dared to approach her. It wasn't about a grudge, not because of the forest incident either. Without that woman, the humans would have surely wiped her from existence. Driven mad by their own tech, those humans were monsters. Vivienne explains there were 5 lands and 2 lords. They ruled the forest vampires but tried to flee during the war. Her daughter was just too small for that hell. She recalls the dragon who spared them with a painful exile, claiming he only did it because they were pathetic. That word pity stings Valentine's mind. Vivienne explains the deal: survive here by drinking only the blood of pigs and cows. In exchange, the dragon would spare her daughter. It was a humiliating fate for royalty, and the sorceress takes note. Outside, Charlotte is getting impatient, wondering when Jack will leave. She mentions her uncle is about to arrive. He hates company, but our protagonist doesn't care. Getting intel on this uncle was his main mission anyway. The girl gets creeped out by Jack's sudden intense hype to meet her relative. When she suggests he's only acting friendly to rob her, wealthy Uncle Jack actually looks a bit offended. Waiting is a drag, he says, asking her to spill the tea on this mystery man. The blonde starts thinking. Besides being filthy rich, Charlotte explains he gave them the house and drops off food every 3 days. She was likely talking about the animal blood. Before Jack can dig deeper into his curiosity, something happens. A voice cuts through the air. The uncle has arrived. The gray-haired man immediately eyes the new kid with suspicion. Wary of Jack's presence, he claims he's never seen him. Charlotte, however, is hyped to see the man. The tension is thick enough to cut, but Jack celebrates meeting the famous uncle. The little blonde adds, that based on his vibe, Jack must be some high-born noble. Jack just watches the dragon in disguise was right there. As the newcomer grills him, he senses another guest is already lurking inside the bedroom. Vivienne tells the doll to call Charlotte inside. The static between Jack and the mystery man is totally electric. Suddenly, his master intervenes telepathically. He reports the man's presence, and she orders him to get upstairs. The stranger asks why Jack is whispering. The boy just shrugs, he's only following his master's orders. He swings the door open. Jack knows this man only came to watch his toys break in their final moments. The mother tries to speak to Charlotte, but her face fills with pure despair the moment she sees the visitor. He mocks her, asking if she's seen a ghost, then promises not to ruin her final moments with her daughter. Charlotte breaks down, sobbing by the bed. She asks if her mom is hurt and starts pleading with her. She begs her to drink the juice she brought, sure it'll fix her. The woman gently refuses, saying she's okay. She thanks her daughter for going out just to buy her a birthday gift. The conversation leaves the girl confused. She demands to know what's happening, while everyone watches the tragic scene unfold. They only ended up here by pure chance, but now they're witnessing an imminent death. Jack finally asks her name. He asks if he can protect Charlotte. It was time to act, and give his presence there some real meaning. Jack decides to cut the fluff and shocks everyone. He asks how she wants her daughter to grow up, as a reborn vampire queen or a progenitor ruler. If not those, maybe she wants the dragons to burn. These dragons treat vampires like playthings. His proposal actually makes the uncle let out a twisted, ironic smile. Barely hanging on, Vivian asks Jack to come closer. She'd always known her daughter's nature was far from normal. Charlotte was different. I just want her to be happy and keep smiling, she whispers. Nothing else matters. She asks for his name. Hearing Jack Valentine, she smiles weakly and entrusts her daughter to him. Jack vows that he'll protect the little blonde from now on. Vivian calls out to Charlotte one last time. Vivian confesses her love before literally vanishing before her daughter's eyes. The girl screams out in total agony. She tries to grab onto her mother as she disappears, unable to accept the truth. Jack and Valentine watch silently, but the fake uncle starts laughing hysterically at the tragedy. To him, this whole scene is just a joke. He mocks the idea of a brat protecting a dying girl. To him, vampires are just brittle, dried-up twigs. The malnourished man snickers as Jack's fist, heavy with concentrated mana, delivers a crushing blow. The impact sends him hurtling backward. He just scoffs at Jack's rudeness, calling him a toxic influence on young Charlotte. As he threatens to teach them a lesson, Valentine intervenes, demanding his true name. He freezes in shock. It was eerie. No mana lingered here, yet this doll was speaking directly to him. She ignores his confusion and brings up the 5 other dragons missing from the forest. They're gone without a single trace. Only 200 years, an adult born, then she questions. His eyes flare with a dangerous draconic light. How does a doll know our secrets? Who are you, monster? He snarls, his temper hitting the boiling point. Hearing the insult toward his master, Jack's mind floods with pure hatred. Valentine asks to be set down, claiming she can stand on her own. She reveals her true identity, Valentine Milos, the legendary ancient mage, causing the dragon's face to pale. Impossible. Are you that immortal necromancer? He asks, visibly shaken. She simply nods, owning the title. Gritting his teeth, the dragon accuses her of being a filthy liar. Valentine drops names like Bahamut and Voldemort, ancient secret titles known only to the highest dragon kin. Those who've met them know. Finally, the man buckles under the weight of the undeniable truth. Shocked, she's still breathing. He finally introduces himself as the proud fire dragon of the Machiavelli bloodline. Galactus Machiavelli mocks this pathetic place, confessing he only came to erase the brat, his toy's unwanted legacy. Valentine commands him to back off, but he laughs, asking if she's forgotten the sacred verbal pact. High dragons always showed mercy to lesser races, especially humans, out of pure pity. How dare she command a dragon? But Valentine doesn't flinch. She stands her ground, declaring that this arrogant lizard has it all twisted and wrong. Because in this tale, she was the one showing mercy. He explodes in rage as she explains the pact. Dragons were never merciful. Their arrogance drove them to segregate races, believing they were gods among insects. She's stunned that even after the Great War, their toxic habits remain. The dragon laughs off her history. He calls her a ghost of a dead era. Enraged, Jack snaps, calling him a disgusting, oversized lizard, and explaining he was trying to be polite by just listening. But then he drops a question. How does a 4-legged beast dare to act human and play God in front of his master? The dragon vows to shred Jack as his claws extend. Unfazed, Jack lunges forward with insane speed. He delivers a devastating kick, smashing the dragon into the wall, pinning his chin with his boot. Respect Valentine, Jack warns. Spitting blood, the dragon curses him. How could an inferior human do this? How did he strike a high-ranking dragon? Done with the talk, Jack orders him to shut his trap and lower his gaze before he ends him. Suddenly, the dragon grabs Jack's foot and hurls him away. He screams that Jack is only cocky because of Valentine's backing. Charlotte watches the chaos unfold, weeping while Jack grumbles that Ron would lose his mind, seeing him covered in this much filth. Your uncle is pure trash, he says, finally shattering the girl's illusions about her relative. She breaks down the weight of the truth, hitting her hard. Jack takes her hand, forcing her to look. He reveals Galactus slaughtered her father and tribe, treating her mother like a disposable plaything. Charlotte tries to protest, but Jack insists he only needs her green eyes locked on the blonde. Jack needed her buy-in to end this lineage. "Watch this," Jack roared, lunging forward, steel flashing. The vamp dodged effortlessly. The deadly dance resumed. Jack whiffed. The vamp smirked. "All that trash talk. I expected a mana prodigy. You're a joke." Before his sentence landed. Slice. His hair hit the dirt. Jack grinned. "Now we can scrap." Balakti snapped, lashing out with venomous cursing. A wind-shattering blast roared at Jack. He tanked it. Even Valentine froze. Magic fizzled against Jack. He battered the vamp face, pinning the dirt. Recognition hit. Balaktis, heir to Luca of the Beast Woods. The vamp paled. Jack knew his dad, one of the Sovereign Five. Jack recalled decapitating the dragon in his past life. The guy must have been hiding all this time. Jack mocked his bloodline. The vamp snarled, demanding his name. Jack smirked. "Soul, disciple of Valentine Milos." Balaktis spiraled. A human breaking his soul spell. Pathetic. A god. No, just a coward. Jack aimed his blade, giving him 5 seconds. "Apologize to my master," face kissing the dirt. Balaktis balked. Jack chilled. "Refuse, I'll dust you. Leave no trace." The countdown ticked, the silence deafening. Final second. Balaktis unfurled his dragon wings. Retreating to warn his kin, Jack watched mana tapped out. The tide turned. Summoning the soul blade, a mana vortex ripped the sky. The primal heaven technique. Balaktis looked up, despair washing in. Facing a true monster, trapped within a white and black abyss. Jack, towering above, he screamed in pure terror. Suddenly, Jack gasped, waking in a luxe foreign bedroom. Ron burst in, stunned, flooding him with questions. Checking his vitals, Jack groaned. "Chill, I'm good." His first thought, "Where are the girls?" Ron said Charlotte is sleeping next door, totally wiped. Valentine's on the couch. Ron pointed to the green-haired woman. Jack grinned to greet her. She coldly countered. "It is afternoon." Ron shook, stunned he could talk. "Is she mad?" She stated she does what she wants. Jack laughed, knowing she was stress-caring. Ron pressed about the doll in coma. Jack promised to spill later. "Respect Valentine." Ron bowed, vowing to obey. Confused but loyal, Ron recapped the chaos. Escort squad found dead. The Marquis found out, sending knights. They tracked Jack's trail. Up to the sky, clash at Asenbul. They pulled him out barely alive. Rushed to the temple. Ron added, "You drained way too much." He casually downed 3 high-tier potions. Tasted like strawberry. The boy smirked, loving that it matched his favorite flavor. Shifting gears, Jack demands to know why the servant was here, instead of protecting Elizabeth like he promised. Looking ashamed, the butler explains. Elizabeth was desperate to come, but the Marquis blocked her. Instead, they dispatched Ron alongside an investigation squad, backed by the Marquis. This catches Jack off guard. Apparently, his old man was even more of a fool than he imagined. Tension suffocates the room as the Marquis' redhead snitch barges into the room unannounced. "What do you want?" Jack snaps while the spy freezes in shock seeing him, wide awake. Gonzalez introduces himself as the vice captain of the Iron Blood Knights, leading the investigation. He sneers, questioning if Jack realizes that taking a commoner as a partner is beneath a future Marquis. He trashes the boy's skills, arrogantly claiming that, at the very least, he should uphold the dignity of his rank. Before anyone can jump to Jack's defense, the boy signals for silence, letting the redhead keep yapping. Gonzalez announces he has a few questions. From what he gathered, the butler secured 3 top-tier potions for the 3rd young master, meaning he could only survive 3 uses. This new attitude stuns the informant who remembered when the kid couldn't even meet his gaze. The redhead reveals Jack was the sole survivor of the guard incident and demands answers. The boy plays it cool, claiming it was no big deal, just that his guard received some shady orders to snap his bones. But he cuts his explanation short, spotting the fear on the man's face. Clearly, he didn't know the whole story. Gonzalez presses for more details. "It was pretty savage, wasn't it?" Jack remarks casually, dropping hints about the lead knight's plan. The informant asks if he's talking about Ryzen, and Jack nods, recalling how they dead seriously threatened to shatter his mana circle. The boy states he simply wiped them all out, leaving the redhead speechless. Then he says it again, making it crystal clear he has 0 regrets. It was an inside job, not outside interference. Gonzalez is floored, realizing the culprit is Jack himself. "It made no sense. I never let anyone who messes with me walk away alive," the boy says, asking if he looks like he's joking. The knight warns him to watch, his mouth calling him a clueless newborn pup. Ron tries to step in but gets shoved aside, and branded a filthy servant, which sets Jack off. Without hesitation, our main character levels the redhead, sending him crashing. That was the 3rd time he'd held back. Suddenly dizziness hits, and he collapses onto the bed, panicking the butler. The boy swears he's fine, noting that the man groveling on the floor was just a measly 7th circle ranker. He asks Ron if he's tired of playing the helpless servant role, making the butler grin. The boy tells him to stop living like that, confessing he thought he could maintain the act forever. But he's realized that just won't work anymore. He insists that at the very least, a servant deserves to be treated like a human being. Ron's expression radiates pure joy at this newfound freedom. As the butler prepares for action, Jack asks how long it'll take to cook. The redhead claims 5 minutes is enough, but the man laughs, joking that's way too long for his culinary skills. Obviously, they weren't talking about food. The vibe in the room was electric. Ron completely dismantles Gonzalez with raw power, despite being called a damn servant repeatedly. The redhead tries to strike back, but he's helpless against the butler's ninth circle dominance. Outside the room, the guards wonder how a mere servant could unleash such violence. Jack watches the beatdown with total indifference, trying to place where he'd seen those moves before. Even though Ron was a ninth circle beast, his foundation was magic, not martial arts, and his physique seemed ordinary. Gonzalez, a seventh circle knight, should have dominated in close combat, yet he was easily crushed spy of the Tolkien Empire, or not. Jack knew he'd never stand a chance against the butler. Desperate, the informant lunges for a guard's sword, aiming to slay his opponent. But before he can swing, Ron drives a knee straight into the redhead's nose, completely humiliating him. Our main character watches with pure satisfaction. His servant had endured years of disrespect, and now he was finally breaking free. Looking down at his fallen foe, Ron turns as the protagonist calls out. "Why is it taking so long to cook one single ingredient?" Jack taunts with a smirk. Gonzalez staggers up, ready to pounce, but Ron was lightning fast, delivering a final blow that sends the redhead flying. He needs more training. Jack scoffs, chewing out the guards for just standing there like statues. Left alone, he roughly grips the redhead's skull. Time for a little chat. He dangles a deal, claiming a man of his caliber deserves a much better life. Even while humiliated, Gonzalez tries trash-talking Ron until Jack yanks his hair with zero mercy. "Do you get it now?" he asks, tightening his grip. The deal is simple. Gonzalez stays vice captain, plus he'll finally evolve his mana. At 30-something, he still has the potential to be a legendary knight. Killing him is a total waste. Jack asks if he's ever dreamed of reaching the 8th circle. The knight is visibly shaken by the temptation. Jack whispers that this remains their little secret. Ron senses something's off with his young master's intentions, yet feels immense pride. The scene shifts. Valentine taps the servant to snap him back to reality. He quickly apologizes for his lack of focus. He tries a formal introduction, but she cuts him off, sensing the Sword family's energy in him. Valentine deduces Ron reached the 9th circle decades ago, proving he was once a high-ranking powerhouse. "You could have hit the 10th circle," she muses, suggesting master-tier potential. Ron remains utterly lost. Her talk of soul control goes over his head. It's been 19 years since he used mana regularly. He only tapped into it recently to shadow Jack. The butler feels zero shame about his life. Despite the disrespect, he chose this path freely. Valentine wonders how he can be satisfied. How could a talent like him serve a child forever? The answer, however, was staring at her. A Sword family member was risking everything to protect this kid. So she finally asks, does he know the boy's truth? Ron only knows Jack's stories, respecting his master's unspoken past. Ron chuckles, imagining Jack asking, what the heck is a Sword family, if he'd heard them. Turning back to the redhead, Jack threatens to rip his mouth off before deciding to play nice. He offers the vice captaincy again. Seeing the man's hesitation, Jack scoffs at his pathetic, desperate state. "You're sick of the beatdowns, right? Shut up and listen," Jack warns, pinning the man down. With surgical focus, he pinpoints the 7 mana circles pulsating near the knight's heart. He hopes the man doesn't take this personally. As Gonzalez flinches, the boy forcefully holds him. "If I wanted you dead, you'd be gone. Watch this." Mana begins surging around the circles. He rewires them through agonizing pain. When Gonzalez gasps awake, he's attained the 8th circle. "It'll hurt for 3 to 5 months, Jack warns, leaving witnesses paralyzed by his godlike power. The informant was speechless at this forced evolution. Now Gonzalez has one choice, total obedience. Obey or suffer. Jack mentions the forbidden magic rumors with a smile that's purely demonic. Jack recalls the Fallon incident and the rumors his father spread. Now Gonzalez has his proof. "This kid is a forbidden mage. Kneel and listen," Jack commands, "or I'll carve it into your bones." Gonzalez must return to the Marquis and lie, claiming the 3rd young master is still clueless. Within 3 months, 40 toxic members of the Marquis family must be erased in total silence. The knight agrees before realizing the trap. There's something heavy embedded in his very heart. "It wasn't a gift, it was a death sentence." "Don't be scared," Jack says, gripping his shoulders. "Follow orders and you'll thrive. The pain is a small price for the 8th circle's power. That power is like a lethal drug." Jack laughs at the knight's soul-crushing predicament. He knew the man's greed would seal his fate. Jack recalls how Gonzalez previously disrespected Ron. The tables have turned. Jack declares the redhead will now serve as the butler's new lackey. The man simply mumbles his acceptance, head hanging low. The pact was finally sealed. Jack kicks Gonzalez out of the room, satisfied with his new pawn. 1 down, more to go. He hopes the next target is just as easy. He turns to Ron, asking if Valentine's done. Starving Jack demands food, but Ron points out his tattered old rags. Style matters. The ever-prepared butler already has fresh clothes waiting. He's always 10 steps ahead and ready. Suddenly, Charlotte bursts in, hugging him tight while sobbing. "I thought you'd never wake up." Touched, he hugs her back and orders a feast of her favorites to share. He's floored by the vampire's raw strength even without real juice. She's a beast. Under a blood-orange sky, Jack apologizes for the destruction, but Charlotte's response hits hard. Without her mom, a house isn't a home. Jack holds the fragile girl gently. He admits he lost his mom too. Charlotte gapes. How'd he find joy with just a butler? Floating the juice with mana, he offers her a taste. The second she sips, a massive energy surge rocks Charlotte's body. Her dormant vampire blood finally awakens. These created vampires are absolute monsters. Their regeneration rivals dragons, thanks to that blood. Dazed but glowing Charlotte feels incredible. Jack checks if she's scared after his display earlier. He'd promised to prove his worth with power. The little one admits she was terrified, but it was thrilling. She calls him daddy, but Jack quickly swaps it to boss. While she settles in, Ron is stunned. His master actually took down a full-grown dragon. Dragons under 50 are already 5th circle masters. They're basically nature's cheat codes. Their draconoid form is peak efficiency, compressing massive power into a lethal human size. While true forms rule with magic, this humanoid state is built for peak physical annihilation. If that arrogant Balactus hadn't let Jack use soul speak, things would have ended badly. It was a close call, but Ron ruins the vibe by nagging Jack about eating veggies. Jack brushes it off. To him, that legendary dragon was just a clueless rookie. Seriously, a second circle human caused that much devastation. That's absolutely insane. Jack realizes how crazy this sounds. Dragon slaying is a myth that would shock any mercenary. Their heads would explode. Meanwhile, Ron turns red as his secret knowledge is exposed. He thought he was being subtle, but Jack totally sniffed out his dragon expertise. Jack just smirks, reminding him how he predicted that man's death by connecting the dots. Ron figured Jack was clueless about the deep secrets. Stories were never Jack's thing anyway. Even in past lives, fleeing the Marquis together, Ron guarded his secrets like a fortress. The butler's loyalty was ironclad. But Jack knows everyone deserves a few dark mysteries. Still, one suspicion remains. Jack locks eyes with his butler and drops the heavy question. Any ties to the Tulkun Empire? Ron's genuine confusion proves he's totally clean. Jack finally exhales. That massive weight is gone, replaced by a truly serene smile. He won't burden Ron. But worn out or not, it's time for a mana circle upgrade. Soul energy is taxing. He needs tougher circles to survive the impact. Suddenly, Valentine appears. She's shocked he used the Dark Bond, a forbidden magic only the two of them know. She created it during the war. It's a lethal curse binding a promise to existence. Break the vow and your body shatters. She demands to know Jack's true endgame. Jack reveals he carved a soul insurance policy into Gonzalez's heart to protect Elizabeth and Ron. Ron is deeply moved by Jack's care. But the moment breaks when Charlotte bursts in. She's crying because the maids treated her like a doll. Jack gently offers her dinner. She declines, overwhelmed by the feast. Then Jack throws a curveball at the butler. Can Charlotte go to the academy? Ron freezes. Organizing that would be a legendary feat. He claims he's just a servant, but Jack knows Ron is the goat of assistants. When flattery fails, Jack threatens to do it himself. Ron immediately calls him out. No blackmail, Master Jack smirks. He's no criminal. Meanwhile, Charlotte's eyes are literally glowing. School, that was a distant dream. Jack promises she's going kids deserve to play. Her talent is too insane to ignore, but being only 11 is a huge problem. The academy's limit is 14, but a recommendation from Gonzalez will fix everything. Jack promises there's nothing to fear. Soon the group finally arrives at the prestigious academy gates. Ron bids farewell, handing over the bags. He begs Jack to stay safe and keep in touch. Still uneasy, Jack stops him for a favor, taking full charge of the Marquis' estate. He needed the servant to handle every detail, ensuring his own focus remained on his studies. Jack demanded absolute silence to grow his power free from any annoying outside distractions or noise. Ron agrees. Jack scoffs, noting that Gonzalez was way dumber than he had originally anticipated. He views the redhead as a mere pawn, completely disposable and easy to discard when finished. The protagonist then reveals a secret order he gave the boy for a specific mission. The goal: amputate their influence. He wasn't talking about limbs, but destroying their entire foundation. His targets were the corrupt officials of the estate and the entire Mantis family bloodline. A cold, calculated strike. This would leave Lady Elizabeth in a devastatingly difficult and complex position. She was too pure. Jack didn't want her tainted, but her house's fall was absolutely necessary. He tells Ron to protect her, showing a rare spark of care beneath his ruthless schemes. Ron feels immense pride. His young master had truly evolved into a different, more powerful beast. Entering the academy, the doll senses a monster inside Jack, despite his good guy facade. Jack smirks and praises the doll, calling her a good person despite her stubborn, icy attitude. She shuts him down instantly, calling him a hollow shell, and refusing to acknowledge his words. Charlotte stares at the grand building wide-eyed. Jack tells her to soak in her new reality. This was her new home now. The thought makes her face glow with pure, unadulterated happiness. Suddenly, a staff member approaches asking for the Valiente heir. Instinctively, Jack answers the call. She rushes to embrace him, while Jack wonders if this sudden closeness hides a secret agenda. An official interrupts, claiming the director is waiting in his office for an urgent private meeting. Jack's dark reputation preceded him. The bloody son of nobility was still a hot topic here. The survivor found among the ruins, even after all this time. The tragic rumors never truly died. The former Duke Rommel had even preserved those ruins as a grim, frozen monument to the past. Memories suddenly flood back. Jack recalls a past conversation regarding a high-stakes, life-changing trial. He had questioned his path, annoyed by the precious lessons he would miss for this test. The director promised safety. As long as his name stayed on the list, he was untouchable. Jack's tired eyes held deep disappointment. He knew his father and brother were plotting his murder. They wanted him dead before he reached adulthood. A brutal, cold-blooded betrayal by his own kin. The director had seen this tragedy many times, yet he could only offer a private room. Young Jack trembled, feeling the crushing weight of total isolation and his family's lethal treachery. Then a comforting hand touched his head. The director told him only he could choose destiny. Back in the present, Jack is different. He smirks, proposing a daring wager to the director. The proposal catches the old man off guard. Jack was no longer a victim, but a player. It was time to settle an old debt. He only asked for one small strategic favor. Rommel realizes the boy he first found broken and silent had been replaced by someone far more dangerous. For the world, a month passed. For Jack, 20 years of survival had changed his soul. Time had rewritten everything. The weak boy was gone, leaving only a calculated master of fate. Skeptical, the old man asks how he'll save a kingdom destined to fall in mere weeks. The empire was a juggernaut, 30 masters, many enhanced with dragon blood and ancient bone implants. They boasted 1,000 elite mages. Meanwhile, Teslin was hopelessly outmatched and desperately underprepared for war. Only 2 masters stood in the empire's path. A complete massacre seemed like the only outcome. With such a massive power gap, 1 month was generous. 3 days would be more than enough. If Jack were leading the enemy forces, the kingdom of Teslin would have already been erased. There stood Director Rommel and his legion of 700 battle-hardened mages, elite soldiers forged by his own hand. Had it not been for the ultimate betrayal by his most trusted advisor, the kingdom could have held out for 2 more months. When the traitor's name is dropped, Rommel's eyes widen in shock as he snaps at Jack for disrespecting an instructor. But Jack doesn't flinch. He coldly reveals that Brutus Marcos was actually a high-level mole for the Tulkun Empire. He's a 6th Circle Knight and Sword Department sub-instructor, but Rommel instantly dismisses the claim as pure slander. Jack just smirks, knowing Rommel will regret his ignorance. Give it a few years and the truth will sting. Once that knife is buried in his back, he'll wish he'd listened. Our main character continues to push Rommel's buttons. The old man's patience finally snaps. Fuming, the director warns Jack not to make threats he can't actually back up. He'd rather pretend this wild talk never happened. He dismisses the boy clutching a pocket watch engraved with a crest. Claiming he won't take the boy seriously, he orders Jack to summon Brutus to his office. The kid complies. Inside the office, Rommel starts with fake praise for Jack's performance, setting a trap for the unsuspecting traitor. Then he drops the bomb. No more secret reports to the Empire. Brutus's face goes pale as he freezes. He stammers in confusion, but Jack just scoffs. Losing his cool, the boy tells him he isn't deaf, just dumb. Jack demands a straight confession to make things easy. Realizing the jig is up, Brutus tries to scramble for an excuse. He claims Jack is just traumatized and warns about the fallout of such lies. But our moody protagonist is done talking. Before the spy can finish, Jack hurls the watch at his face, mocking how much a traitor loves to talk. Brutus is stunned while Jack stands there like a cold-blooded beast, completely unfazed by the chaos unfolding before him. As Bernardo demands answers, the tension snaps. Before anyone can blink, Jack lunges forward with a lightning-fast strike. He lands a precision blow right to the man's chest. For a split second, he regrets it, but he's committed. It's too late to stop now, so he charges again. Brutus is baffled, wondering what this kid is even thinking. Jack dances around the counterattack effortlessly, leaving the veteran instructor reeling from the boy's insane combat skills and speed. Jack can feel the 6th Circle mana barrier shielding the man's body like a fortress, but he isn't intimidated. He knows that even the most perfect defenses have a fatal flaw just waiting to be exploited. He delivers 2 devastating gut punches, sending the traitor flying across the room with sheer, unbridled power. The director is paralyzed by the sudden violence. Meanwhile, Jack remains ice-cold, determined to squeeze a confession out of him. It's almost pitiful to see the man crumpled on the floor, his face mangled from the absolute beatdown he just took. Jack demands the truth now, making it crystal clear that cooperation is his only ticket to making it out alive. But Brutus sticks to his act playing dumb. That's when a chilling, murderous smile creeps across Jack's face. He taps the man's chest, testing his defenses before aiming for a much more sensitive and vital target. Those high-tier mana circles are built tough, but shattering something that took years to perfect. That's real psychological warfare. Hovering his hand over the spy's heart, Jack issues an ultimatum: answer truthfully, or face the ultimate price. He threatens to shatter the man's mana circles one by one. Brutus's face twists in pure, unadulterated terror. Despite the threat, he tries to stay stoic. Jack's first question is simple. Are you a Tulkun spy? The question makes the instructor shake, but he denies it. Big mistake. Jack immediately begins crushing his first mana circle. Just like that, he's downgraded to a 5th circle weakling. Jack asks the exact same thing again, his voice chillingly calm. The boy is in no rush. He knows the truth will eventually claw its way out of this traitor. Now paralyzed by fear, the spy can't even find the words to respond to the monster before him. With sadistic calmness, Jack explains that even if a circle regenerates, the sheer agony of the process is soul-crushing. The pain would make him beg for death. And Jack isn't even finished with his little chemistry lesson yet. He can make sure those shattered circles never heal again, turning the proud knight into a permanent cripple. There's even a way to make a broken circle hurt for eternity, and Jack seems to love that idea. Jack's icy smirk widens as he watches the light die in the spy's eyes. Victory is already his. With dragon blood and ancient knowledge on his side, he's a living nightmare. The instructor is shaking like a leaf. He gasps, asking how a kid could know about the secret human experiments. Jack's accuracy is straight up terrifying. It's clear the dark trials have already begun. Stuttering in horror, Brutus can only manage one desperate final question. Who leaked the top secret intel? Jack calmly drops the bombshell. He knows everything about the dragons and those twisted experiments. He needles the instructor. Why would a 6th circle mage meddle in such filth? Brutus begins to scream in utter confusion. How could a mere boy know the Tulkun Empire's darkest research? Jack simply watches the panic with a chilling, ironic smirk. Without warning, Jack ruthlessly shatters every mana circle. He mocks the fallen man as Brutus's world completely collapses. With his target neutralized, Jack coldly turns to the director. It's finally time for the old man to hear his demands. Rommel is fuming while processing the chaos. Even in defeat, Brutus snarls that the Empire will never forgive this betrayal. He screams that Jack will be torn apart, but the boy silences him forever with a sharp, stinging slap. The director admits this mess is a total headache, yet he can't deny that Jack is shrouded in mystery. This wasn't the weak child Rommel met just a month ago. Jack had evolved into something far more formidable. Jack tells him to just bury the incident. The director agrees to skip the details, but he needs one answer. How did he uncover the plan? Was it the dragon blood Jack cuts him off, reminding him of their deal? The director should already see the signs. The shadows of a continental war are becoming impossible to ignore. The struggle for the Mother Association is going public, pitting the moderates against the rising radical faction. The Crown Prince's radicals seized total control, and the extremist-led empire quickly fell in line behind them. Jack didn't have every detail after years of mountain isolation, but his master had taught him enough to survive. He has sufficient leverage. Jack decides to spare Brutus, handing the traitor over for the director to keep under guard. Brutus's knowledge of dragons is pure gold. That kind of information would be invaluable for the battles ahead, including for the king himself. Rommel is left speechless, unable to call the boy a fool, given his terrifying insight. The director can't help but ask how a nobody on the floor possessed such high-level imperial secrets. Jack explains that in his past life, he saw the hybrid experiments go far beyond mere testing phases. Human trials were about to begin, according to confidential files. These documents were so secret that few even knew. But Jack claims that's Rommel's problem now. It's time for his conditions, and they aren't up for negotiation. He only has 2 requests since Rommel's insults stung. First, knowing the old man is loaded, he wants a house, a mansion with a garden near the academy. Rommel protests, arguing that all students must stay in the dorms. Jack reminds him that every rule has an exception. Exhausted, the director asks for the second, hopefully simpler request. It's straightforward: enroll Charlotte as a student, even though the second semester is already well underway. Mid-year admissions are strictly forbidden, but the protagonist doubles down on the exception argument until Rommel breaks. The director spots the pale blonde girl outside who is currently squeezing Valentine like a giant fluffy plushie. She treats her like a doll. Curious, Rommel asks about their bond, and Jack proudly claims he's her new tutor. The old man chuckles at the answer. As Jack exits, Charlotte rushes over her face, glowing with pure joy. Her excitement is obvious. He asks if she waited long, but she's only anxious to know the final verdict. Will she be allowed in? Jack confirms it with a smile, and the news sounds like heavenly music to her. She's happy for a heartbeat, but then a dark shadow of doubt suddenly clouds her beautiful features. Jack notices and asks what's wrong. She hesitantly admits she never thought this was possible due to the rumors. They said the academy was only for chosen humans, and she knew she wasn't one. But Jack stops her there. He says it doesn't matter, and asks if she hates her bloodline. The question brings a deep melancholy to her eyes. She reflects on her tragic past. It was a heavy burden being the remnant of a pitiful ancient lineage. House Royal was a vampire dynasty that fought for generations only to be completely annihilated in the end. Her father died in the slaughter, leaving her mother as her only light. She knew how that story ended. Jack sighs, telling her to be proud. He warns her never to lower her head for something so trivial. Human or vampire, she is Charlotte of Royal. He urges her to never forget the promises they made. Reaffirming his role as her guardian, he vows to help her become a monarch if that is her wish. If she wants to rebuild her species, he'll stand by her side through everything to reach that goal. The director watches them depart, realizing the Empire's destiny now rests in the hands of this mysterious young man. Jack strides toward his new home, ready to crush the second semester and keep climbing to the top. He'd brave any storm for her, but more than anything, he wants her to stop doubting herself. Deeply moved, she thanks him, yet her mother's warning echoes in her mind, nothing in this world is ever truly free. Jack smirks, agreeing that everything has a price. Then he drops a heavy question. Does she really think his help was free? He admits he wouldn't lift a finger for his own boss, making Charlotte panic and stammer that she didn't mean it that way. He teases that he'll collect his debt in the far future, while Charlotte smiles, pulling Valentine into a warm embrace. She vows to repay him when the time comes. Seeing her spirits lifted, Jack suggests a stroll while their new home is prepped. Just moments ago, Roman had guaranteed he'd handle Charlotte's school enrollment personally. The residence would be ready in 2 hours, but Roman insisted on sending a full staff to manage the massive estate. Jack knows the staff are just eyes to watch his every move, but he honestly couldn't care less. As they walk hand in hand with Valentine, Jack is genuinely impressed by the kid's surprising insight. For a child, his words carried a heavy weight of wisdom that caught everyone off guard. He spoke of identity and acceptance, truth Charlotte never expected from someone she once labeled a weirdo. She struggles to decide if she's been insulted or complimented, but chooses to take the win as they continue their path. In the distance, a blonde youth is grinding through sword drills. He's a hard worker, but seemingly a complete stranger. Suddenly, Valentine yanks Jack's ear, demanding they stop and watch the boys training. The trio settles on a bench. Jack notes the swordsman is barely 17 despite his towering frame, but his casual observation turns to shock when he senses the boy's raw mana sensitivity. It felt impossible. A commoner at the second circle, likely peeking at the fourth, nothing like his imposing physical stature. Jack asks if Valentine is interested in the boy. She teases back, asking if he's scared she'll take a new disciple. He isn't worried. A fourth circle peek is nothing to him. He just wants to know what caught her sharp eye. Valentine has a legendary nose for talent, yet Jack fails to see anything special in this sweating youth. He searches for an answer but finds none as the boy continues mindlessly swinging his wooden blade. Charlotte chimes in, noting the boy looks like he's about to collapse from pure exhaustion. Bruises litter his neck. He's clearly pushing past his limit, but Jack still remains unconvinced. Then Jack looks deeper. He realizes the boy's magic circle had been completely shattered once before. Miraculously, the boy had rebuilt it himself, a feat that should have been utterly impossible. Valentine admires his sheer grit. Jack finally catches on to why she's so intrigued. The foundation of a dark mage is built on death, ruin, and a burning thirst for vengeance. By mending his own broken circle, this boy revealed a terrifying obsession and a silent, simmering rage. Jack steps forward, politely breaking the boy's concentration. The blonde youth pauses, looking up in confusion. The boy asks if they need help, but Jack flips the script, offering his own expert advice instead. Your arm is too stiff, he critiques. Relax your right arm and fix your stance when you lunge. He warns that leaving his vitals exposed for a reckless attack will get him killed in a real duel. The young swordsman freezes, rattled by the razor-sharp insight coming from this mysterious stranger. Jack keeps his identity hidden casually, asking if the boy still gets bullied despite his massive size. The question hits a nerve, flushing the boy's face with shame. Seeing this, Jack tosses him a high-grade, grape-flavored potion. When asked why, Jack just shrugs, claiming he got rich off some stolen bronze. Before walking away, he finally asks for a name. The boy answers Thanos. Our hero introduces himself as Jack Valentine, leaving with a cryptic promise that their paths will cross again. As they leave, Valentine questions his sudden kindness, while Charlotte chooses to believe in his good heart. Then the realization hits Thanos. He watches the group go, his mind spinning with new information. He knew Jack was a genius student with perfect scores while his own grades were rock bottom. The rumors called Jack a useless failure from a noble house, but Thanos had just seen a total monster. Back near the academy, a young messenger begins guiding Jack through the prestigious grounds. The messenger was sent by an old man named Joe Nady, a name Jack recognized from a notorious mercenary band. Fire ants or ground ants, he couldn't recall, but the kid was definitely vibing with this massive mansion. Pure VIP luxury that shattered his expectations. To any outsider, it looked like the director himself pulled strings. He'd clearly worked some serious backstage magic with the volunteer house, just to secure a high-end spot like this. Our MC wondered if that explains the messenger boy's totally dead-eyed stare. He looked like an empty shell. Coldly, the boy snapped back, claiming his feelings were irrelevant. He was just a pawn, following orders like any messenger. Jack called out his blatant rudeness, leaving the kids squirming in awkward silence, completely stripped of any witty comeback. Suddenly, the MC dropped a bombshell. This messenger was using high-level polymorph magic to mask his true identity. He wondered if the old man already knew, especially since the reveal made the boy go stiff with tension. Nervous vibes intensified. It baffled the MC how so many high-circle humans were lurking in such a tiny territory. He took the chance to scan the man, verifying he wasn't just another low-tier spy trying to infiltrate them. When the silence became suffocating, the messenger burst into a booming laugh, completely ditching his fake persona and facade. He demanded to know how the MC saw through him, especially since he'd suppressed his mana flow to 0. He confessed he came personally, dying to see the kid who managed to grab the director's full, undivided attention. Behold, the legendary Bellamy Craig, the supreme magic tower, master of the entire Teslan kingdom, was standing right there. Back in his past life's war between Tulkun and Aslan, this man had shielded the Elder until the end. Now he was desperate to learn how a mere boy shattered his supposedly perfect and unbreakable high-level polymorph disguise. Jack admitted he usually wouldn't notice, but he'd already scrapped with a beast using that exact same magical trick. Dropping honorifics with a tower master is a major sin, so Bellamy quickly checked the kid for his disrespect. But our MC didn't flinch, stepping closer while declaring that respect is a two-way street, you gotta give it. He argued that since he never asked the master to hide, there was zero reason to treat him normally. With a playful wink, Bellamy let it slide, joking that being that sharp-eyed was basically the kid's own fault. Realizing this kid was a true prodigy, the master shocked everyone by offering to take him under his wing. The offer left Jack and Valentine floored. Why would such a heavyweight mage make such a wild, out-of-the-blue suggestion? The kid politely declined, stating he already had a master, which only fueled Bellamy's massive ego to mention himself. The master revealed Jack's sister also rejected him once, yet here he was, shamelessly doubling down on his offer. He claimed having 2 masters was totally fine, but the boy stood his ground. Jack was impressed by his resolve. The Tower Master's chaotic recruitment style was wild, but suddenly Valentine stepped in to cut through the messy tension. She called Bellamy out by name, exposing his true identity to the group, and explaining exactly who he was. He was the Supreme Magic Tower Master, a titan of power. She noted Bellamy once met the requirements. He nearly reached the 10th circle but seemingly gave up. She asked if he'd been ambushed during his breakthrough. Bellamy was shook. How did she sense those faint lingering traces of 10th circle mana hidden deep within him? It was a mark found only on those with shattered spirits. The doll urged him not to quit just yet. Even at his age, hope remains for those who graze divinity. Magic belongs to those who possess the will. After those deep words, he had to prove he was worthy. Bellamy begged to know the woman's name. She kept quiet, calling it a mere scar from a bygone era, before ending the conversation with a heavy sigh. Jack broke the mood, reminding everyone that Charlotte was still waiting, and it was high time they headed back. Before leaving, Jack promised to visit during the grand opening ceremony even though he was practically being dragged away. They nearly hauled him off to the Magic Tower, but Valentine felt a flicker of genuine pity for Bellamy. She mused how some grind without talent while others live completely oblivious to the massive dormant power within them. Her words stung, leaving the MC feeling a bit salty since she hadn't bothered teaching him anything new lately. But the doll knew better. Jack had mastered her lessons. His lethal use of shadows against Gonzalez proved his growth. That was her final, ultimate spell. His grueling training was finally and officially complete. Bellamy trekking all the way from the Magic Tower just for one kid was insane. Before passing the mansion gates, Bellamy stole one last look at Jack. A maid asked what was on his mind, but he honestly couldn't say. She hinted at rumors from the director's office, and she wasn't wrong. He'd just come from a secret meeting. Bellamy was low-key fuming. He couldn't believe the old man folded for a brat's demands despite having no personal beef with Jack. Something was seriously sus. A 2nd circle mage soloing a 6th circle powerhouse. That math just wasn't mathing. To him, the boy was the ultimate threat in that room. After hearing the arguments, Rommel tells him he's missing the bigger picture. The boy brought a girl, likely staying for her like any typical teen. Plus, having him around would be a massive win for the entire kingdom's future power. The old man suggests focusing on the boy's mysterious knowledge, since he'd be sticking around for a long while. Bellamy knew the principal was right, but a nagging feeling still gnawed at his gut. He'd follow orders, but he had to speak his mind. He feared Rommel would get dragged into the messy political crossfire of the Marquis household. But the old man believed that succession war was already ancient history silencing the master. Still, he claimed to know the Marquis' true nature. Even if his eldest daughter was a prodigy, the man only saw her as a political pawn. And the second son, just another average third circle student in a sea of thousands. Nothing special. Bellamy had never seen anyone so brain-dead and utterly lacking in imagination as that guy Philon. The director asks for the point, and the man calls him senile. Why would a former duke who hated politics dive back in? Small perks like private rooms or skipping class could be ignored, but gifting Jack an entire mansion was way over the line. He worried the secret would leak soon. But his rant only made the old man chuckle. 30 years together, and he knew exactly why his friend was flapping his gums like this. Rommel explains his gut feeling building a solid bond with this kid would pay off big time later. The man found it weird, but the principal just kept grinning. He then suggested that Bellamy check out the house personally to see Jack's true colors. Reluctantly, he decided to roll with it. After finally talking to our protagonist, he realized his old friend was actually spitting facts. A smirk crept onto his face, prompting the maid to ask if it really happened. He confirmed it, remembering something crucial. Inside the villa, the boy had already charmed the maids and the chef. He looked at the 5 bodyguards and told them to keep watch, promising to make their lives easy. First off, he's a meat lover. He demanded heavy servings of protein and fresh greens at every meal. It wouldn't top Ron's cooking, but it would be decent enough to fuel his daily grind. He talked about food with such terrifying intensity that it actually spooked the elite guards. He had to squeeze every drop of talent from his new staff, including a world record-holding chef. He looked like a Mongol warrior, and since the guards were too many to name, he affectionately dubbed them the 5 Musketeers. He joked asking if they were trained guards or secret spies. Apparently, everyone there had suffered a brutal ancient mana rupture at some point in their lives. He told them they could learn from the kid who literally rebuilt his shattered circle at school. Shocked, one man asked if the director spilled their secrets, but Jack just told him to shut up and work. Mid-lesson, Charlotte skipped over to brag about how epic their new home was. It was time for a grand tour with his favorite brat. The old man handed over the keys on August 9th. With classes resuming on the 16th, 5 days had already vanished. It was the ultimate vacation. He spoiled Charlotte with new clothes, epic street food, and even caught a musical together. It was vibes only except for 2 things. 1, his battle sense and mana control were sharp, but his stamina, absolutely cooked. During a morning run, the blonde girl interrupted him with a shout. She wanted to copy everything her master did. He joked about ditching her if she couldn't keep up. When they stopped, she thanked him and asked if the boss would meet that same guy again. He confirmed it. Second, when the boy went to find Thanos, he was training solo as usual. The guy was a beast. From what Jack saw lately, he was a genius of effort with 0 talent, yet he likely held the Academy's #1 spot. When it came to the grind, Jack was relentless, showing up every single day like clockwork. He was basically stalking the beefy guy, but those nasty wounds sparked a curiosity he couldn't ignore. He grilled him on why his injuries were piling up using a "did you use the potion" excuse. The guy looked absolutely crushed, prompting Jack to immediately ask why he was rocking such a funeral face. Thanos clocked the price at 40 gold coins, which Jack confirmed before promising he'd pay every cent back. This totally annoyed Jack, who just wanted to know if he'd actually downed the potion despite being wrecked. The big guy likely had shattered bones by now, making every movement a living nightmare for him. Swinging a blade with numb limbs is insane, yet he just turned away to continue his hellish training. No sane person could train daily through that level of agony. Jack knew he was grinding all day. Jack couldn't fathom why a guy as doggedly persistent as Thanos was out there, getting treated like a punching bag. Even Valentine thought the main character had a real gift for being annoying and asked if she agreed. She called him cute but mostly felt pity, wondering if he'd truly learned a single thing from her. She saw it all, the deep-seated hatred and the desperate burning desire consuming the blonde boy's soul. Those very traits pushed him forward, but they were also slowly ripping the poor kid to pieces. A collapse was imminent. All these signs convinced Jack that the doll had already seen more than enough. Time to decide. Tanim clearly lacked raw talent, yet they still called him over to question his motives. When asked why he even wielded a sword, he dropped a bombshell he wanted to be the continent's strongest. The duo froze in shock, but before he could explain, Jack erupted into the most disrespectful laughter ever. Stung by the mockery, the muscular man just told Jack to laugh his head off if he wanted. If his dream was that hilarious, fine. But Jack clarified he wasn't mocking him and to not get triggered. He couldn't figure out his angle before, but now it clicked. He stepped closer to pop the question. He asked if Thanos wanted to be his little chick too. Just then, Charlotte rushed over with water. Shook by how close they were, the blonde guy felt majorly insulted by Jack's bizarre proposal. Jack offered to repeat himself while Thanos could only stutter back. "Did you seriously just say, chick?" Jack doubled down. Thanos didn't know the exact meaning of chick, but he knew it sounded straight up wrong. Jack then asked if he wanted to live off him, which left the blonde guy even more baffled. He was essentially trying to make the kid his vassal, but the teen reminded him he was a commoner. The mentor got a blunt, "So what?" in response. Thanos explained he had 0 value or money. Jack didn't care. He'd heard about the volunteer house and saw this kid was built different from rumors. Rumors were irrelevant, but the man kept declining, telling Jack to go find someone actually worth his time. He suggested finding someone better than a talentless commoner, insisting he'd be nothing but a burden. Jack watched him thoughtfully. It was almost funny how much the guy worried about him for no reason. Jack reminded him of his dream to be the best, which was exactly why he wanted him. He'd already accepted defeat. Ignoring the mentor, Tanamis admitted he knew he had zero talent for mana. That display of self-loathing regarding his mana talent immediately made Jack snap at him to pay attention. He told him he was focusing on the wrong things as he possessed a talent far superior to mana. Plenty of people have mana talent. Even farmers with high aptitudes have lived and died in total obscurity. Their talent never even got to bloom, and even Jack had some dormant talent of his own. He had mana potential before meeting his master, but he always knew he saw the world differently. While others saw nothing, he could see mana veins drifting in the air and coating his skin. Back then, he didn't understand talent, nor did he have the drive or intention to put in work. Effort never came naturally to him, but Thanos had both talent and drive, a rare combo indeed. He told him to stop self-sabotaging, because from where he stood, Thanos' talent outshone everyone else's combined. The words left the big guy stunned into silence, but before he could respond, some random jerk piped up. Wow, looks like the beggar's making friends now. Jack turned to find three punks who definitely didn't belong there. Arriving before the semester even kicked off, and being reminded of his second brother, left Jack feeling absolutely disgusted. Thanos urged him to bounce quickly, but the leader of the three arrogant punks blocked his path once more. Looks like this beggar is deaf. Didn't I order you not to breathe a word to anyone here? He sneered. He couldn't believe a mere commoner dared to defy him after the brutal beatdown he'd already received. The hulking man blocked Jack, who didn't budge an inch, pleading with him to leave before things got ugly. His problem alone. Jack eyed the injuries, asking if that trio was responsible, as a chilling madness filled his gaze. Finally, the red-haired brat piped up, deducing that Jack had handed over that high-tier potion to the lowly beggar. He was intrigued since that potion was a total secret. Crossing his arms, the little brat demanded an answer. He asked if they'd swiped the potion from the man who promised to pay Jack back every single cent. Jack couldn't believe they'd robbed someone he'd helped. He seriously considered ending the punk standing right in front of him. But first, he wanted to know why this man let himself get trashed by such pathetic losers. That insult really triggered the bully captain. Thanos wasn't looking for a fight and instead begged Jack to just walk away. He wanted Jack safe before he got hurt. But Jack was done playing nice and refused to budge. Knowing they'd stolen his potion meant he was already involved. He commanded the two hidden guards to show themselves. He told them to handle the mess, but the redhead played stupid. Without any help from those useless shadows, Jack geared up for war, vowing to strip that trio of everything they owned, until the guards finally intervened. Teslin is ruled by 5 true Marquises. We're talking real blue-blooded nobility, with serious stacks of cash and power. House Herman, the Lords of the East, had a total nightmare of a son about to graduate the academy. Dietrich Herman was a walking crime spree. By age 13, he was already terrorizing the staff and breaking every rule. He was an addict by 14, chasing cheap thrills with rumors swirling that he was even dealing illegal substances. Yet his future was set as the sole heir. At the academy, he was surrounded by high-ranking noble brats. Everyone shielded his toxicity, allowing him to treat people like toys just to kill his boredom. He targeted a nameless commoner who somehow got into the academy. He caught the guy training solo one afternoon. He used the poor guy as a literal punching bag until he heard the sound of glass shattering nearby. Seeing the potion, he barked, "How does a filthy beggar like you end up with something this valuable?" He beat Thanos senseless for his supposed arrogance, but Thanos never fought back. Now Jack was absolutely wrecking them. Jack was mopping the floor with those brats. Durio, missing a tooth, screamed, "Who the hell is this kid?" Before he could swing a wooden plank, Jack disarmed him with a lightning-fast kick. Charlotte and Valentine just watched. They were used to Jack's chaotic energy, while Thanos watched in shock. He effortlessly crushed all 3 solo. He even complained about his lack of stamina. Just when things settled, the redhead started crawling back toward him. The brat boasted about being the heir of House Marquez, but Jack was only focused on the missing guards. The punk looked clueless, acting like he had no idea what Jack meant while continuing his pathetic little rant. He barked about reporting Jack to his family, but seeing Jack approach with murder in his eyes stopped him cold. Jack was ready to crush him, ending his power trip instantly. Then our hero decided to deliver a final blow. He mocked that pathetic loser, finally baiting the bodyguards out of hiding. They ordered him to halt the torture. They were fuming, but Jack snapped back, saying they wouldn't see this if they'd actually done their jobs earlier. They asked if he knew who he was messing with, but Jack couldn't care less. Turning toward Thanos, he asked for the redhead's name. Dietrich Herman. Thanos whispered. Even while eating dirt, the brat stayed arrogant. The kid had the nerve to demand how a mere commoner dared to speak his noble name out loud. "With your filthy commoner mouth." That insult earned him a brutal kick to the face. He won't be looking pretty tomorrow. Jack turned his gaze to the hooded men, demanding to know why they let Thanos get bullied for so long. Seething with fury, one of the guards lunged at Jack, hell-bent on crushing him into the ground. But Jack dodged effortlessly. However, a sudden shift in the air caught him off guard. Another goon tried to ambush him from behind, but Jack was already prepared to strike back. He was ready for the kill, but Jack slipped away easily. Still, a second shadow was closing in fast. He began chanting a high-tier 6th circle incantation, aiming for a massive, large-scale explosion. If successful, the entire training grounds, Thanos and his mentor, would be incinerated instantly. Unfazed, the fire mage channeled his azure mana, mocking them as nothing but common thugs. Having honed his skills, he concentrated pure mana into his palm. Even if the servant triggered the blast, the spell would backfire. Jack smirked. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had envisioned. Desperate and teary-eyed, the man refused to yield. Jack caught a fatal flaw in his next move. The opponent repeated the same mistake. The man assumed Jack would strike again with his right, hoping to duck and weave. His movements were laughably predictable as our hero slid beneath him. A precise punch buried itself into the man's chest. Despite the pain, the servant unsheathed his blade. Jack stepped back, launching a kick that sent the weapon flying from the rival's grip. Some people never learn. Before the man could react, the young mage was already behind him. A hand clamped around his hooded head, crushing his windpipe and draining his strength in seconds. Jack was stunned by how quickly he folded. The servant's mana was now permanently sealed away. Such dangerous magic would have wrecked the academy. Hoarsely, the fallen man gasped out a question. "How did you strip my magic?" Jack's cold reply. "You don't need to know, just lose." Defeated by a 14-year-old. Jack then demanded to know why they had tormented Thanos. To them, the commoner was just a toy, a puppet who lacked the power to fight back. Time for some restitution. Jack demanded the elixir money back, though he sounded half serious. Too bad these black-cloaked fools were idiots. The servant gnashed his teeth in pure vitriol. "Who cares about that elixir?" he spat. "You've just made an enemy of the Herman family." Jack didn't give a damn about their family. That elixir was his and he wanted payment. With a chillingly innocent grin, Jack noted the 40 gold coins stolen 5 days prior. "Isn't it only fair to return it?" He held out his palms, demanding 5,000 gold. Where would they find that kind of cash? Thugs like them better start praying. Terror paralyzed Dietrich as Jack sat beside him. "Relax," the boy whispered with terrifying calm. The condition was simple: hand over everything. Gritting his teeth, he surrendered 2,000 in cash. Jack became an overnight millionaire as 60 gold coins hit his pocket. He let out a sneer. Poor Dietrich. Without that gold, this would have ended badly. "Now, who exactly are you?" Dietrich had never seen him before. Amused, Jack patted his head like a stray puppy. "I arrived a bit late, but let me introduce myself," Jack said, dropping only his name. The reaction was electric. Everyone knew that name. He was treated like a straight-up celebrity. "I'm Jack Valentine." The realization hit he was Fallon's younger brother. Some friends his brother had. Our boy usually doesn't strike children, but these toxic brats were the ultimate exception. With a single strike, he shoved his boot into Dietrich's mouth, leaving him in tears. "Without your family name, you're absolutely nothing," Jack spat at the trembling red-haired boy. He called them cowards for using stolen mana and warned he'd toss them in the lake. Jack's face was a mask of pure fury. "Remember my words," he hissed with venom. "I live in the mansion outside the gates. If you want revenge, come find me. Next time, I won't hold back." He kicked Dietrich away, realizing the boy had literally wet himself. Paralyzed with fear, Dietrich watched Jack invite the girl along. She didn't hesitate for a second. Passing Thanos, he whispered that the offer still stood. "My chef is elite. You'll eat steak daily." As birds circled the academy courtyard, Jack decided to check out the upcoming fireworks festival. In the Assemble province, the celebration kicks off 2 or 3 days before the semester starts. It's the ultimate welcome for new students. Despite the drama, the academy remained the Empire's peak. From princesses to future dukes, everyone was here. Graduating from this place meant total success. This peaceful status quo was ending. Slicing his meat, Jack brooded over the blood-soaked memories of the last 5 years. The Tesla Empire was a ghost erased from existence. While Jack craved total annihilation, Charlotte blissfully enjoyed her sweet dessert. Jack's mentor suddenly shattered his dark thoughts, eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Did you just mutter something out loud?" she challenged. He played it cool, denying everything. Sensing his unease, she pivoted to the recent brutal raids terrorizing the academy grounds. She openly mocked their security despite Article 1's promise of equality. In this era, the law was just a pathetic lie. Rotting ideologies filled her with pure disgust. Seeing no other choice, the mentor admitted to concealing a massive, world-changing secret: dragon blood and bones. At the mention of Tesla, Jack's heart raced to reveal everything, but he forced his secrets down. Fireworks ignited the midnight sky. Suddenly, Charlotte broke the silence, targeting the protagonist with a barrage of sharp, probing questions. Questioned on his god-tier skills, he claimed years of harsh experience. But her next question cut through his stoic mask. Have you killed many? Jack confirmed it coldly. He finally revealed the truth. He was a regressor from 20 years ahead. He revealed that Ron was once his ride-or-die He was the first to uncover the truth that his death was no accident but a calculated murder. Jack reveals that in this current timeline meeting, Charlotte was a first. In his previous life, their paths only crossed in the monster forest, the vampire's final stand. When asked about his interest, Jack explains he saw a fellow warrior in her eyes. He senses a deep traumatic past, and a heart desperate for a fresh start. Announcing their training would begin tomorrow. The news leaves the girl absolutely hyped. His master plan? Forging her a mana heart. He'll test her control under the fireworks glow, a revelation that leaves her completely stunned. Charlotte beams with gratitude while Jack wears a satisfied smirk. He knows the road ahead is brutal, but decides to live in the moment. Meanwhile, Dietrich is absolutely losing it in his room. The noble spits Jack's name with pure venom trembling as he recalls the boy's terrifying gaze. Surrounded by wreckage, he screams in frustration. How could a mere 14-year-old kid instill such paralyzing fear in him? Vowing bloody revenge, his shaky breaths betray his total breakdown. By the second day of the semester, our young hero goes looking for Rob Ron. Craving his friend's legendary steaks, his body suddenly begins to shiver for no reason. Out of nowhere, dizziness hits him. That red sauce Charlotte used, it's actually human blood, pale and nauseous. The protagonist still forces a smile, asking the girl if she's enjoying the meal. She's totally loving it, but Jack's focus shifts to Thanos, sitting solo and defeated. Feeling Jack's presence, Thanos looks up, before hanging his head again, whispering a desperate plea for help. The hero didn't hesitate, inviting the boy inside for food and shelter. The kindness makes the blonde boy burst into tears. Not wanting to embarrass his sensitive friend Jack, jokes that the chef went overboard with the onions. Next day, Thanos tries to apologize, but our generous MC just brushes it off like it's nothing. Jack avoids prying into the details, respecting his privacy, though he suspects some shady elixir is involved. Watching the buff instructor lead training with insane intensity, the young master is interrupted by Charlotte. Rocking her training gear, the determined girl shows up with a confident grin, ready for her lesson. The seasoned master gears up too, beginning a brand new training arc with his dedicated disciple. By sunset, Charlotte is completely wiped out, collapsing onto the ground without an ounce of strength. Jack hypes her up, saying she crushed it today, but her weak groan says otherwise. Suddenly, she asks with wide-eyed excitement, what does all this mean now that she's tasted mana? With a gentle smile, the boy gives her a positive nod and celebrates her massive win. He had his suspicions before, but now he was certain this girl is built different. After all, she was wielding mana at a high level, almost like she was a seasoned pro. Forging her first mana circle in just 10 hours is an insane flex for a total newbie. Charlotte takes the hint to end the session, struggling to her feet to head back to the mansion. But after a few shaky steps, she faceplants onto a bench and passes out from sheer exhaustion. The mentor asks Jack if he'll ever tell her that most beginners take days to form a circle. If it were up to him, he'd scout her instantly, though without Jack's help, it'd take much longer. A magic circle ignites beneath their feet, sucking mana from the air to build shields and store energy. By funneling some of his own mana into Charlotte, Jack fast-tracked the entire process significantly. However, this high-tier method isn't for everyone. Jack admits even he struggled at first. The mentor is baffled that Jack asks for nothing in return, helping her out of pure kindness. Turning to Thanos, Jack notices the boy is tearing up again, prompting him to quickly wipe them away. The master easily clocks his suspicious vibe, sensing the boy feels trapped and frustrated by his lack of progress. Thanos is in a dark place, too broken to even answer if he's given up, while jealousy burns inside. He prays that at the very least, Charlotte lacks sword skills, so he isn't outclassed in everything. Jack looks at him and asks, "Did you really think becoming the ultimate knight would be easy?" Hailing from the Western continent, our protagonist has the legendary Thanos falling to his knees in tears. Jack exhales a heavy sigh while eyeing the Titan. How could such a mountain of a man be such a crybaby? Jack tries to hype him up, patting the blonde giant's head while insisting a true knight never quits over a girl. He tells Thanos his dreams are still within reach if he perseveres. For once, someone actually believes in him. This sudden spark of faith ignites powerful brand new emotions within the knight's soul. Everyone used to mock his ambition to be the greatest knight, laughing at his pure-hearted goals as naive delusions. Having faced similar family drama, Jack relates to his pain and asks what the real problem is. Thanos reaches out, gripping the boy tightly, while thanking him for showing such life-changing support. Keeping it low-key, Jack advises him to keep grinding, because hard-earned skills will never betray you. While planning his next move, Jack hears the sharp snap of a twig. Someone is definitely lurking nearby. Thanos senses the boy's sudden shift into high alert. Who could be tracking them in this moment? A familiar eerie chill crawls down Jack's spine. It feels like he's being targeted at his most vulnerable. Like a harbinger of doom appearing at the worst possible time, an uninvited guest draws closer. Jack's gaze locks onto the horizon, eyes burning with battle lust. He commands Thanos to protect the girl. He tells Thanos to get behind him. The blonde giant hesitates for a split second before leaping into action. Our hero had already sniffed out the intruder, knowing the visitor was walking straight into a death trap. He didn't expect them so soon. His eyes scan the perimeter until he finally spots the hidden observer. Nearby, 5 unconscious sentries litter the ground. They are still breathing, but they are completely out cold. While Charlotte slumbers in Thanos' arms, a white-haired figure announces that the girl has arrived right on time. Suddenly, the mentor wanders in, rubbing his sleepy eyes and yawning, totally oblivious to the looming danger. The girl asks about dinner, just as Dietrich and his squad crash the party with a cold entrance. Hooded assassins materialize everywhere, some crouching on the ground, others perched high in the trees. Their aura is pure malice. Dietrich wears a twisted smirk as he greets Jack Valentine by his full name. He draws out every syllable with a provoking tone, making it clear this reunion isn't friendly. Jack instantly channels his mana, shifting into a defensive stance while warning Dietrich not to come any closer. As the future Marquis of the East, the redhead knows that in this world, power is the only law. He plans to seize his family's throne soon. Why leave Jack alive to cause future trouble for the Duke? Dietrich plots a trap claiming Jack struck first. He needs a perfect excuse to ignite a noble war. With false witnesses, he'll trigger a bloody conflict between the Hermann and Valentir houses. Beside him stands Bentiman, a Ninth Circle plague doctor and master of the lethal Pentanal Guild. No matter how strong Jack is, a Ninth Circle master is an insurmountable wall of pure magical destruction. Jack is trapped in the open near the mansion, right where Dietrich wants him, alongside Charlotte and Thanos. Dietrich asks for intel, while Bentiman confirms the blonde girl is currently forming a mana heart. He's relieved they stayed for 9 hours since forming a mana heart. Usually takes 2 full days. The entire staff, from the cook to the 5 servants, has already been marked by the shadows. They will be erased silently to avoid a direct clash with the main family forces. The assembly knights are distracted elsewhere while civilians nearby scream for help as chaos erupts. A massive fire was set in the Duke's basement as a diversion. No reinforcements are coming. The plague mask signals his men, the trap is perfectly set, and the slaughter is ready to begin. Jack roars the command to strike, initiating the mission with a single sharp wave of his hand. Dozens of warriors charge forward with bloodlust. A special 500,000 gold bounty is on the line. Dietrich sneers, thinking Jack is finished, but Thanos suddenly steps up, his massive frame shielding the boy. Thanos begs Jack to escape while he holds the line. His hands are trembling violently against his blade. Gripping his heavy sword, he thanks Jack for trusting him and vows to hold back the tide. This sudden display of loyalty catches Jack off guard. A confident smile finally plays on the protagonist's lips. Pure-hearted fools. Where else would I find souls this naive? He wonders, a strange warmth blooming in his chest. A stark contrast to his past life's lonely end. Squaring his shoulders, he takes a decisive step forward. Don't sweat it, he tells them. Get behind me. He vows to shield them all, his stance unshakable. Dietrich stalks closer, dismissing them as lost causes. Meanwhile, the boy channels mana, ready to blast them into oblivion. But his mentor shuts it down with a sharp cheek pinch. Stop, she commands, floating down to face Dietrich. Jack's left buffering as she finishing them off herself. That arrogant noble, meanwhile, can't process a talking moving doll. Her eyes ignite like beacons, hair fluttering as motes of light spiral toward Dietrich. Blinding him as he stammers in pain, the smoke clears to reveal a full-grown woman standing tall. She is a legendary heroine of old. The icon who ascended humanity to the world's peak has finally returned. After 4,400 years, Dietrich is left speechless. Bowing his head in respect, our protagonist beams with pride at his mentor's grand reappearance. He tries to offer a greeting, but gets cut off mid-sentence. Bam! She decks him right in the face. He hits the dirt with a yelp, clutching his throbbing cheek. What was that for? The boy cries out, completely baffled by her sudden physical violence. She scolds him, it's payback for his reckless behavior. He completely disregarded her wishes back there. He basically kidnapped her from that cave. The kid didn't give a damn about her feelings, or what she had to say, acting like a total brat. Yet even while being roasted, he just sits there grinning. He's totally starstruck, and realizing how much he missed her. Accepting the blow, he points at Dietrich and demands his coat immediately. The noble is livid, but after catching a massive public L, he folds and tosses the cloak. Draping it over his mentor, the boy mutters about the biting outdoor chill. He doubles down, swearing he'll never regret dragging her out of that hole. His resolve is absolute. Even under fire when pressed, if he feels guilty, he stands his ground. He did what had to be done. In his eyes, it's a win. She asks if she was meant to die peacefully there. He just scoffs. He knows her better. People are just beasts driven by greed, he says. He knew his master was yearning for a different world. Humans, monsters, they're all the same. He saw through her facade. She's been dying to escape that cave. His guardian had blundered before trusting the wrong snakes. only to be imprisoned by her own creation. Dietrich's squad is vibrating with fear, while the mentor realizes she's now technically in her student's debt. The kid's stunned. He thought he was just a pest to her. Vibing with her words, he welcomes the rare praise while watching dark energy begin to coil around her fingertips like a serpent. She surges with overwhelming mana. Sorry about this, she deadpans. After all, they did come for her student's head. Panic mode on. Dietrich screams for an all-out assault, completely clueless about the monster he just awakened. She chants an archaic verse. Obsidian resin drips, staining the sky and warping the very fabric of reality itself. The mercs vanish behind a thick violet haze as it spirals violently above her head. Everything's going dark. Let the shadows return, she declares. Behind her, a colossal, ghastly skull manifests from the void. Miles away in the Tulkun Empire, a master wizard flinches. This dark resonance. He's felt this nightmare before. That sickening aura. For a split second, he tries to gaslight himself into thinking it was just a glitch. But no, the mana flow is definitely haywire. Meanwhile, deep within the Black Sea, shadows argue in hushed, urgent tones. They're certain the soul signature of the past and present are a perfect match. It belongs to Valentine Milos. The proof is etched in the magical scars the dragon still carries on its chest. A jagged wound from the woman who haunts that hooded man's every waking moment. He's tried to erase her for ages, but failed. This woman's insane longevity ruling their world for 410 years defies all reason. Our hero watches with amber eyes, captivated by his mentor's catastrophic spell. As the black tar morphs into a gaping maw, a blood-curdling shriek pierces Dietrich's soul. Through the gloom, only a dark silhouette with burning eyes remains. The massive blast obliterates the front line. Dietrich's mind fractures, drowning in pure, unadulterated terror. A chilling numbness creeps up his legs. All around him, mercs scream in agony as they witness the end. His limbs crumble into fine ash as his legs begin to vanish into nothingness. Dietrich finally realizes he is staring death in the face, while his trembling hands disintegrate. A skeletal hand reaches for him, forcing the terrified man to scramble back in absolute horror. He desperately offers riches for his life, but the mentor coldly ignores his frantic, pathetic pleas. His physical form dissolves into glowing particles, drifting toward a shimmering portal high in the sky. As Charlotte gasps in shock, she stares at Valentine like she is facing a terrifying final boss. The legendary mage reaches out only to pat his head, introducing herself as that dummy's teacher. She asks them to protect him, but the blonde beauty quickly corrects Thanos when he acts surprised. Jack is no fool, making his mentor smirk and playfully admit she was wrong about him. The boy shows off his bratty, narcissistic side, earning a playful flick from his laughing teacher. Before leaving, Jack tells Charlotte to grab some juice while ordering Thanos to handle the passed-out guards. When the little vampire whines about her tired legs, the blonde sighs but eventually carries her anyway. Saying goodbye, our hero notes his friend's loyalty before turning serious to ask about the real mission. Valentine Milo stands tall and serious, revealing she has been pondering the words he spoke earlier. She asks if he forgot their previous talk, despite her having eavesdropped on the entire conversation. While being held, she heard everything about dragon blood and bones, sparking deep suspicions of a link. Worried, she ponders the dark possibility that illegal cross-species experiments might actually be real. An extension of forbidden studies, she guesses. The boy nods, confirming she is on the right track. He logically explains that the human thirst for immortality is always fueled by a hunger for youth and health. In ancient research, an aging scientist once proposed a terrifyingly radical new approach. Why not live like dragons? Long-lived species like vampires and dragons possess a completely different biology. Their cells age differently. Our hero describes chaotic, blood-stained laboratories filled with forbidden scrolls. Their crossbreeding experiments yielded partial results, though true immortality remained just out of reach. Instead, humans began absorbing the powers of orcs and elves at a truly horrifying price. Those who received these powers only gained 5 to 10 years before meeting a tragic end. Gravely, he reveals the Tulkun Empire restarted these tests, extending hybrid survival to 30 years. Guilt washes over her. She was certain she had purged everyone involved 4 centuries ago. She vividly recalls walking barefoot into that cold lab, the floor littered with bloodied documents. She remembers burning the files and executing the agonizing hybrids that crawled at her feet. Her face tightens with regret as she admits her fatal mistake. She should have killed the Dragon Lords. 2 of those beings betrayed their kind, likely offering their own offspring as test subjects. When asked which specific dragons were used, our protagonist was ready with the perfect answer. Only 2 Dragon Lords in existence can manipulate soul energy, a gift shared by their entire bloodline. Combining this bloodline with 10th Circle mages created abominations that can shatter any magical barrier. After processing this, the mentor asks a critical question about her student's future goals. As a relic of the past, she is still tethered to this world and curious about the boy's path. He plans to reach the 5th or 6th Circle in a year and invade Tulkun during school break. His mission mirrors hers: destroy the labs and wipe out every single person involved. Meanwhile, poor Thanos is struggling to carry all the unconscious servants at the same time. The mentor tugs his sleeve thoughtfully, asking if they really need to wait for vacation to act. Stunned by her question, the disciple hesitates before confirming to Valentine that he is indeed her student. With an intense gaze, the boy reminds her that she promised never to meddle in worldly affairs. Seeing it as a personal duty now, she is convinced she must ensure these experiments are eradicated. Once and for all, even if it means acting directly and heading to the Tulkun Empire immediately. After all, as his mentor, her authority is absolute and unquestionable. It's undeniable. Shattering that lab will ignite a massive crisis among the radicals, pushing for continental unification. Witnessing these twisted experiments, our hero realizes she's finally moved past her old scars. Yet he still carries that heavy resentment alone. Suddenly he makes a bold request: open a dimensional rift. He needs a legendary blade. Without hesitation, she tears through reality, creating a jagged purple fracture in the air. From the void emerges a masterpiece Solarian, forged by the Dwarf King and radiating pure elegance. Crafted by mermaids, the blade thrums with life as the young warrior grips it with effortless mastery. Valentine reveals a white mask etched with intricate patterns, a relic built to cloak identities and bend mana. When asked where it came from, she playfully dodges, claiming she just found it at a market ages ago. Donning the mask, the boy jokes about peeping into bathhouses and immediately catches a hard slap for his insolence. No more games. As the coordinates lock in, her eyes widen in shock. She knows this place. It's the fallen capital of Gunnar, the mentor's ancient homeland from 4 centuries ago, now buried in rubble. Beneath the ruins lies the secret lab. As she tears open the portal, the tension is palpable. "Ready?" she asks, reaching out. He responds with a confident smirk. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a cold, distant facility. A mad scientist gloats, basking in the high praise he received from the infamous Hanks Beckerman himself. The doctor's facade cracks when human experimentation is mentioned, desperately rambling about necessary sacrifices for results. He claims the cellular activation in the animals is promising, but his clinical explanation is cut short. Hanks silences him with a cold glare. He doesn't care about progress, he wants to know when the real massacre begins. The scientist begs for magic-sensitive test subjects. When questioned about the nature of these twisted hybrid creatures, bloodhalves, he answers without blinking. A wicked, satisfied grin spreads across Hanks's face. Before departing, our protagonist turns back asking the doctor if there are any other guests expected today. The doctor shakes his head, rubbing his chin. But suddenly, Hank senses an alien, overwhelming mana presence. Before he can even pinpoint the source, the very foundation of the lab begins to buckle and moan. Total chaos. The floor explodes downward as Hanks barely reacts, watching helplessly as the room is torn apart. The noble tries to shield himself, but the doctor's agonizing screams drown out everything. His magical defenses are useless. Crushing pressure forces blood from his mouth. Hanks gasps, his mind reeling as he tries to process the sudden carnage. His servant shouts, "Is it over?" But the nightmare is just starting. Out of nowhere, hellish flames erupt. Massive pillars of fire roar toward the defenseless doctor. Hanks, trembling under the strain, pushes his limits. He casts one final desperate shield before being blasted backward like a rag doll. His barrier holds, barely. He hits the ground hard, coughing up crimson spray as he clutches his shattered ribs in agony. He looks up to see the doctor's charred corpse lying on the floor below, illuminated by flickering torchlight. We cut to McKinley. Bodies litter the grimy floor as a mysterious liquid drips endlessly onto the cold stone. The hero stares in horror at a chained dragon. Seeing its blood harvested like cattle ignites a murderous fury. "Let me handle this," he says, a cold, predatory smile playing on his lips as he steps forward. With a nod from the mentor, Valentine unleashes the same infernal blaze that devastated Hanks earlier. The dark chamber erupts in light. Still as terrifyingly beautiful as ever, the boy mutters, watching the flames dance. He shields his eyes from the blistering heat. They've reached the 3rd floor, the heart of the ruins. Amidst the debris of a forgotten civilization, the mentor scans the area, ensuring nothing but dust remains. The protagonist approaches the captive dragon, staring at the jagged bolt of energy, piercing its noble chest. The beast lets out a low, warning growl. He remembers finding it in his past life, broken and far more pathetic. Back then, it begged for the sweet release of death. This time, he smirks and draws the Solarian blade. Ignoring the dragon's thunderous roar, he moves with lethal grace. The sword carves brilliant arcs through the air. Clang. The heavy chains shatter into scrap metal. The dragon collapses, gasping for air in pure exhaustion. His eyes soften with pity as he reaches out to touch its massive head. 18 years since their first encounter. He leans in gently, embracing the rough, scaly neck. "It's okay now," he whispers, feeling the creature's pain. He acknowledges the long eons of suffering. Jack looks at the dragon, his mind flooded with memories of this noble soul. A prayer for death once filled the void. Now silence reigns as the boy ponders. If this beast still craves life, after being tossed aside like trash for twisted experiments. Paws pinned by iron stakes, the dragon was reduced to mere cattle. Sorrow leaked from its ancient eyes. At the news of its skin forged into armor and blood spilled for science, Jack explains how the endless agony would snap its mind until hope vanished completely. But then he presents a way out. A fresh start in a land far from here. A chance for this nameless beast to reclaim its fate. A faint murmur grows into a thunderous roar. A primal scream declaring its newfound will to survive. The boy flashes back to a darker timeline, where he had to grant this creature a mercy kill. Deciding to bring it home, Jack eyes his mentor, who offers only a quiet, knowing silence and a captivated nod. Suddenly, Hank's enraged shouting shatters the peace, making the dragon shiver in terror as it recognizes its butcher. Paying the threats no mind, the duo keeps talking, as if the noble didn't exist, driving him into a frenzy. As Hankus unleashes 10th tier magic, Jack just smirks. Incensed by the boy's arrogance, the strongest man explodes, but Jack's gaze turns cold and lethal. A surge of raw power forces the adult back. Then, with a lightning-fast knee, Jack snaps his rival's blade. The noble stutters, sensing the dark energy, while the student stalks forward under his mentor's watchful eye. The mentor stays back as the beatdown begins. Jack, fueled by cold rage, completely obliterates the enemy's steel. It ends with the noble slammed into the stone while the dragon watches. With a glimmer of hope, Hank leaves a massive crater before slumping onto the floor totally out. Jack walks over, disappointed that the continent's supposedly mightiest warrior was such a massive letdown. Gripping his ruined sword, Hankus stammers, demanding to know who this kid is. Jack just chuckles darkly. That mockery chills the bone more than any threat. Jack cryptically mentions a rogue named Thanos, destined to crush the blonde noble one day. Enraged by the prediction, Hank charges like a wild animal. The main character stands his ground, blade held with lethal grace. Those piercing amber eyes gleam with malice as he scans the room with surgical precision. As Hankus reaches for another blade, Jack strikes like a viper. A clean slice sends the noble's hand flying in a crimson spray. Jack's chilling gaze screams that Hank is beneath him, a pathetic mix of weakness and misery. Using the noble as a literal punching bag, Jack rains down, kicks until the man hits the dirt. Wiping his bloody steel, Jack taunts him to power up. It will be way more fun killing him later. Jack drops secrets about the Prince of Tulkun's faction, essentially signing Hank's death warrant in advance. Watching his former pupil shake with terror triggers Jack's memories of the previous life where he ended Hank, and how a knight named Morangos sought revenge. With a dark, twisted grin on his face, Jack uses the very mana chains that bound the dragon to sever his disciple's arm in one swipe. His mentor asks if the testing is over, then notes a certain prize worth keeping. Warping back to the courtyard, Jack tosses his mask aside, looking bored as a low chuckle escapes. His face shifts from amusement to cold apathy, the look of a man forged in endless bloodshed. He looks at the dragon and asks for its name. The beast looks up, whispering one word, Shell. Shell Bahamut. The name cracks through the air, heavy with the weight of years of soul-crushing agony. The boy brushes the dragon's scales, scoffing at the name given by parents who threw it away. Forget that. Your name is Jershell now, Jack declares, with absolute authority. He looks at the newly named beast with protective intensity. The dragon, now Jershell, allows itself to be led to a room. After its wounds are mended, it drifts into sleep. Resting on plush cushions, Valentine Milos sits cross-legged and grills her student on his next move, against the Dragon Lords. Jack shrugs, wondering which of those legends will be the first to kneel. He muses how fun it would be if the mighty came begging to the weak. His eyes glow. With an affection the mentor knows all too well. Jack makes no effort to hide his feelings. He stood in awe of the legendary woman who had defied death for 4 long centuries. Kneeling before the architect of the modern world, he vowed to crush the Dragon Lords. No more sacrifices, he would set her free. Valentine finally rose, silent and resolute. While Jack gripped his dusty cloak, he saw her return with damp hair cascading over her. After his clumsy compliments, she teased him to bathe as he pulled his shirt off. His torso was a roadmap of scars, which he treated with a glowing, potent elixir. Sitting by her bedside, he dodged her questions until her worry became impossible to ignore. Like a bratty child, he played up his pain knowing she had watched him sleep. Now it was his turn to protect the mentor, who once adored his peaceful face. Under the heavy silence of midnight, he tucked her in, lost in deep burning reflection. Meeting her 400 years ago, the forbidden thought made his face flush deep red. The world feared a terrifying necromancer, but to him, she was the ultimate vision. Earlier, deep in the Ol's dungeons, a man in chains broke the cold silence. Was a decade of spying worth it? His leader had only ever shown him kindness. Despite losing his 10th circle magic, the prisoner smirked with chilling, arrogant insolence. With lethal confidence, he mocked the Tower Master's total ignorance of the dark truth. Brutus demanded answers. Why were the kingdom's greatest mages vanishing into thin air? The lies were exposed. The forest clearing recruitment was just a sick, twisted cover. The Tower Master snarled, promising the prisoner would beg to speak once torture began. 5 days of hell only earned hysterical laughter from the man's miraculously intact body. Why was he still unharmed? This treatment didn't fit the kingdom's brutal, bloody reputation. Shaken, the Tower Master fled, wondering if rot had already consumed the kingdom's heart. Sudden flames engulfed the dungeon just as Dietrich plotted his move against Jack. Finding only ash, the master assumed Brutus had been erased by the mysterious inferno. The next morning, the dragon's shell left the protagonist's allies reeling in total shock. Charlotte shivered in fear, while Thanos stammered, asking if it was truly a dragon. Jack clarified that Shell wasn't like the mindless, rampaging monsters of their stories. The dragon cowered like a cornered beast, until Jack's gentle touch eased its trembling. "You're safe now," he whispered, questioning every single truth the world had established. Ordinary steel couldn't bite a dragon. Divine beasts were built from something far more ancient. That beggar had clearly used Shell for his own twisted and godless experiments. Jack took his brutal revenge, but now the dragon looked at him with pure terror. Seeing the reverence in Shell's eyes, Jack realized his own image had fundamentally shifted. It was as if he'd awakened as a different person after his long, deep slumber. Though he still felt handsome, the creature bowed its head in absolute, total submission. A stark contrast to the hopeless life Shell endured rotting in pools of fluid. Overwhelmed by pity, Jack gently stroked the dragon's cold, scaly face with deep compassion. At only 8 years old, Shell was just a child, surrounded by broken, miserable souls. The mentor channeled raw healing mana, mending the dragon's broken form in seconds. Jaws dropped as limbs regenerated instantly, but the terrifying evolution was just starting. Valentine pushed further, Shell's screams echoing as her bones shifted and reshaped themselves. A delicate girl emerged from the light, sending a terrified Charlotte running to Thanos. While the mentor smirked with pride, Jack stood frozen, mesmerized by her new form. She snapped him back to reality, reminding him of the looming semester ceremony. She warned the now human Shell to stay ready for the chaos that was coming. He promises a swift return, and pushes her to rest, then queries about the dragon's appetite. The mere mention of steak makes her eyes sparkle, prompting our hero to order a premium cut immediately. Before vanishing, he suggests she vibe on the rooftop, if contemplating her destiny starts getting too boring. As she waits, ancient memories flicker fragments of a time when the Teslan Academy first stood tall. The headmaster delivers a chilling address, a dark warning that even the most legendary empires eventually crumble into dust. Unlike the main character's bright memories, this talk of creeping shadows feels like a grim prophecy. Following the lab's total destruction yesterday, it's clear the old man knows some heavy internal secrets. He hints at Brutus, detailing how 10th Circle radicals plan to drown Tulkit in a sea of blood. His somber tone clashes with the burning spirit of the ancestors who built this land. Students stand baffled by the mixed signals, while our protagonist observes the growing tension around him. Watching his peers process the speech, he realizes each student holds the potential to flip the entire script. Ceremony over the crowd disperses across the grounds as everyone snaps back to their daily grind. Jack stretches out his stiff limbs, annoyed by the long sit, and realizing there are no classes. For day one, he decides to hit up the former director to express gratitude for the house. He actually vibed with the gift. Suddenly, a familiar figure catches his eye, and he lets out a shout. He yells his big brother's name with pure hype, catching the man completely off guard and startled. Jack waves a cheerful greeting, asking when he pulled up. The reply is a cold, dry yesterday. His brother dodges contact, staying distant. Unfazed by the frostiness, Jack gives him a casual pat. He demands a polite hello, reminding him their blood, though his gaze suddenly turns sharp and lethal. When the brother stays stubborn, Jack leans in, whispering that he could literally end him right here, if he doesn't show respect. Switching back to his chill mask, he claims he didn't mean to stall him. With a fake friendly slap, Jack releases him to his friends, but Felon bolts like he's seen a ghost. As he flees, Charlotte slides up to Jack, wondering if that was just some friend he rejected. She's stunned when he reveals they're blood brothers. Jack explains that DNA doesn't always mean love. The girl shoots him a curious look, demanding to know where she actually stands with him. Faced with that cute pout, Jack gets flustered and jokes about her hitting some deep puberty phase. After her heavy reflection, his honest answer that she is definitely family makes the vampire's face glow with joy. Though he plays it cool, for our lead family means the people he chooses to shield. He'll protect them all, including Master Thanos and Charlotte. Meanwhile, Felon is making a quick exit. Friends gossip about the weird vibe. One notes that Jack seems to have totally dominated his senior. Their dynamic has completely flipped, leaving Felon's psyche shattered as he fails to grasp his own fear. He wonders why he's still terrified of the brother he once used as a toy running faster. His friends are lost, suspecting some mental breakdown, until Felon spins around in a blind rage. But he freezes, paralyzed by his brother's lethal stance, unable to even utter a single word of defiance. He looks away in total defeat. Jack scoffs, noting with pure disdain that his brothers become boring. Even after conquering his fear of water, Felon still shakes. A new strange pulse thumps in his chest. A toxic cocktail of hatred, fear, and a bizarre emotion he's never felt for anyone before. He barely notices his own wounds, clutching a cold cookie while pondering the sudden fall of Brutus. The news didn't rattle him at all. Instead, he bluntly asked the headmaster what the real issue was. The old man is stunned by the boy's absolute lack of concern for Brutus's fate. Realizing the talk is hitting a wall, Jack pivots to thanking him for the epic new estate. He hypes up the chef whose cooking charmed Charlotte. Still, the director's silence feels heavy. Just as Jack turns to leave, the old man calls out, Cookie nearly falling. The boy listens. He hears about a shock transfer to the Magic Academy, all thanks to the Tower Master. Jack admits he never planned on attending normal classes, but the director issues a stern warning. Academy rules were shifting, so the geezer threw a deal his way. Switch to the magic track, and his workload would vanish. But Jack wasn't having it, demanding a single day of classes. After some heavy haggling, they settled on 2. The boy dropped the act. He was only there for the diploma, not the lectures. His real endgame was the Academy's hidden vault, a treasure trove of 400-year-old magic artifacts reserved for graduates. Jack doubted his target blade was still there, so he considered having Bellamy Craig forge something even deadlier. Realizing both Bellamy and the director were low-key trying to scout him, Jack found the whole thing hilarious. He wasn't the type to take orders. When the director offered a Marquis title in exchange for his talent, Jack literally doubled over in laughter. Once he caught his breath, he gave that fancy title a hard pass. Climbing the social ladder was never the plan. He tried to bail, but the old man stopped him with a pointed question. The principal asked about yesterday's incident. Remembering the servants he'd knocked out, Jack played it cool. Nothing happened. It felt more like an interrogation than a chat. Jack lied, claiming he only checked on the staff because lunch was late. He claimed he dragged them inside for their safety after a supposed brawl. The old man wasn't buying it. That excuse was paper thin. Still, the director let it slide with a knowing, almost paternal smirk. Boys will be boys, right? Jack leaned in, ready to bounce. As he stepped out of the office, a painting of a girl bashing a horned man caught his eye. Meanwhile, Valentine lingered behind in the room. Watching her go, the director's instincts flared. Decades of political warfare had sharpened his senses to a razor's edge. He'd met countless kings, but none possessed an aura quite like Valentine Milos. She casually grazed the windowsill flowers, praising his speech as impressive. Everything about her, from her grace to her gaze, screamed that she was dangerous. The director knew she was a rare breed. Valentine then suggested he'd make a better general than a principal. Maybe back in his glory days when he was still the warrior Bellamy had described. The Tesla empire is brimming with talent, but can the director truly shield them all? His gaze intensified. She pressed him for an answer, but the moment shattered as the door flew wide open. Jack barged in to reclaim his mentor. She called him a blockhead for rushing her, but he just shrugged. He was just worried she was lagging. Out on the street, Valentine was a total head-turner. Vendors practically begged her to take free bread, but she shut them down. I'm officially allergic to pleasantries now. She was used to the worship, but the merchants were crushed. It was obvious the director wanted her as a student. The vibe was off. Suddenly, Valentine dropped a heavy one. Do you actually trust Director Rommel? The answer was simple. Jack trusts no one but his own circle. Valentine was the one who needed to watch out. Their relationship was built on cold necessity. Jack had no intention of being a pawn in their little game. She followed him here, but the purpose of this detour remained a total mystery. They arrived at the Ayades Guild, a sketchy hub for mercenaries and hunters alike. Jack was after his cash. This was a place where any sin could be bought for the right price. A 7th Circle mage doesn't come cheap. He knew Dietrich must have dropped a fortune on that hit. But what happens when both the client and the killer end up dead? That was the real reason for this visit. A polite clerk tried to greet them, but Jack cut him off immediately. He demanded the manager and his money back right now. He dropped a coded bombshell regarding last night's 9th Circle assassination attempt. The clerk turned ghost white and almost screamed. Her partner lunged to cover her mouth. She nearly blurted out Jack's name. He just flashed a predatory grin. How did they know who he was? His gaze turned lethal as he leaned over the counter, closing the distance. The girl panicked and leaked Dietrich's name. The trap was sprung before they even realized it. Dietrich was sloppy. Instead of handling things himself, he used this guild as a middleman. The staff was trembling useless for info, so Jack decided to turn up the heat. He flipped an hourglass, giving them exactly 5 minutes to bring out their leader, or else. If that sand runs out, the Ayades Guild is getting wiped off the map. Valentine. She's baffled by his cold resolve to dismantle an entire shadow network. Most Imperial guilds are just greedy middlemen. Jack's real goal, finding out who put the hit on Dietrich, but the assistant's panicked face already confirmed everything. Seeing him alive sent her into a total tailspin. Her shock was proof she was in on the assassination plot. Using a guild for a high society hit is basically a death wish. Jack figured Dietrich would have handled it personally. Now the entire guild is staring at him like he's a ghost. Even the people who bankrolled the hit are shook. The manager strolls in, casually snacking on grapes until he hears who's visiting. His smug composure instantly shatters into pieces. The name Jack Valentine hits him like a freight train. His face goes pale as his cool demeanor completely fails. His eyes cloud over with pure disbelief. The assistant trembles, clutching her dress while repeating Jack's terrifying 5-minute ultimatum. 34 years in the game and the leader has never faced a monster like this. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Pentanel Guild, those plague mass killers, literally never miss. Their boss is a 9th circle mage, for crying out loud. Yet somehow the target is standing right there. There's no time to rethink when the clock is ticking down fast. The leader finally crawls out, nervously wiping his sweaty palms on his pants. He's clearly losing his mind. Introducing himself as Avero, head of the Elides Guild, he stammers an apology while trying to mask his terror. They sit across from Jack, who immediately shuts down the small talk. No tea, just cold, hard business. Avero plays the clueless card, asking what brings a young noble to his office. He's totally faking his innocence. Jack asks if he's interested in a proposal, but his sharp eyes catch the greed flickering in Avero's gaze. Avero's already imagining a massive payday, but that hope vanishes when Jack brings up last night's murder attempt. He demands to know if a contract was signed to end his life. Avero doesn't even try to deny it. Since Imperial law shields guilds as legal brokers, Avero thinks he's safe, but Jack knows how the system works. Mercenaries need cash, clients need dirty work, and guilds take a cut. It's the Empire's biggest operation. Rumor has it, this place even has ties to the Imperial throne. Then Jack drops the ultimate soul-crushing question. What was the price on his head? How much did Dietrich fork over? Avero starts stuttering, playing dumb again. Jack's patience is dead. He didn't come for excuses. He came for concrete numbers. His glare turns absolutely lethal. He's done repeating himself. While Avero babbles about clauses and commissions, Jack's mood hits rock bottom. Suddenly, Jack launches a kick that barely misses the leader's head. This isn't a negotiation, it's a reckoning. He's here to collect a blood debt. The assassins are dead, but the contract money is still up for grabs. Jack wants every single coin back. Avero has exactly 1 week to deliver the full sum, or lose everything. If even one gold piece is missing, the guild is history. Jack adds one final bone-chilling demand. Don't you dare touch a cent for fees. He'll know if Avero tries to skim off the top. Avero stands frozen, his face ghost white. He knows there's no way out of this trap without paying up. As they head out, Jack casually tells his mentor the chat was productive. He's still got his own side mission. Back in the office, the staff crowds around their leader as he collapses onto the sofa in total despair. He groans, regretting the day he ever took Dietrich's job. Noble on noble hits are nothing but a massive headache. His scream of regret echoes through the halls. He finally realizes he's messed with a true apex predator. When he first saw Dietrich's request, Avero wanted to pass. Only a lunatic would target someone like Jack, but his higher-ups forced his hand. A letter from the top told him he couldn't say no to this. So he hooked Dietrich up with the Pentanel assassins, thinking it would be quick. He was dead wrong. Now they're being blackmailed by a minor heir who isn't even in line for the title. Avero is livid. Taliso stands there, unsure whether to speak up since the newcomers are actually friends of the Marquis. The blonde pauses to think. Taliso was recruited months ago for her insane info-gathering skills, but her origins remain a mystery. Avero had introduced the Pentanel killers to Dietrich, expecting a simple end to the messy affair. Instead, he's stuck in a nightmare. The kid he dismissed as a nobody is now holding his life hostage. The leader's fury boils over. He's been outplayed by a teenager, and the humiliation is worse than the threat. Taliso watches him spiral, keeping her secrets close. She knows more than she's letting on to her boss. The gears of fate are turning. Jack's presence has set off a chain reaction that no guild can stop. Taliso felt shattered as the truth hit. He apologized, realizing his massive blunder. There's zero chance Bentaman suddenly flipped and became a low-life traitor. Gathering top-tier members near Assemble must have cost over 30 silver coins. But the hit-failed Jack Valentine lives. When asked about the bounty, he claimed total ignorance of the contract and no proof the killer fled. If they'd caught him, they'd know the exact payout before calling Taliso. The boss asks if Lord Dietrich attended the opening. Nope. Abiru demands details. Only servants were at Dietrich's hotel. His guards vanished last night. He's fuming. This disappearance is bizarre. Abiru tells him to imagine an ambush. Picture a 9th circle magic strike and 30 elite assassins hunting Dietrich. Even 6th circle pros are top tier. Escaping them, an absolute pipe dream. Dietrich is likely dead, and the Bentanel Guild wiped. Abiru calls it failure. The leader snaps, screaming that the target is still alive and kicking. Returning unscathed is weird. Taliso is baffled. Jack should have been terrified. Instead, he was perfectly calm, while chilling with the latest recruits. Nobody special was around, even if the Marquis had knights on standby. He had beef with some. Maybe a local mage covered his back. Perhaps the old man helped. Jack is staying at the Assemble mansion, though. Being a VIP guest in the dukedom is a solid reason for protection, but the fire blocked the army. Abiru senses something is missing here. He orders a subordinate to grill the Valentier rep for more intel. Scour everything. Bring me Jack's files. We need every man searching. Most importantly, find Bentiman's stashed cash. The admin then remembers a detail. Report this failure. Dietrich is gone, and Bentonel is totally MIA. Mention that Jack Valentine might be under the Assemble family's wing. He also remembers a mysterious young girl who was accompanying Jack. Suddenly, Abiru pivots. He doesn't know her, but she instantly grabbed him. One brief look earlier filled him with a primal, instinctive terror. Like a deer facing a tiger, he retreated. He approached an employee instead. Luckily, he trusted his gut while savoring a sweet treat. Total mood. Jack returns home to a surprise. The kids are grinding with wooden swords. He exhales. It's unlikely they'll actually draw blood during this practice session. They're just sparring. Both just tasted mana for the very first time. They were fighting like angry roosters, but now things are getting serious. The mentor looks troubled. She asks if Thanos can really beat that boy. Jack flashes back. The mentor notes that Charlotte has zero sword experience. Just by looking, Jack should have seen she's never even held a blade. She's clumsy and has no sense of range or distance yet. Despite that, Charlotte could still crush Thanos. The big guy is struggling. It looks like she's losing ground, but Thanos is the one actually failing. He's stronger, yet she counters every move with her awkward swings. Jack smirks and proposes a bet. Give me 9 years' time. Thanos will beat Beckerman. It's a tight window, especially as Beckerman grows. The mentor is down for the challenge. One wish for the winner. Loser grants any request. Valentine is intrigued. How will he pull this off? What's Jack's endgame for this kid? Even he seems to be playing it by ear. But there are plenty of ways to make it work. Claiming they need rest, Jack separates them. Blushing hard, Charlotte insists they weren't brawling, tears practically stinging her eyes. Jack isn't there to scold, though. His praise for her swordsmanship makes Charlotte's eyes sparkle instantly. Even without seeing the full duel, she dominated, landing 2 out of 3 lethal strikes on Thanos. Defeating a massive, hulking juggernaut when you're small and fragile is a total nightmare. But Charlotte's strategy was flawless. Without Jack's interference, Thanos would have been utterly crushed. Patting her head, Jack praises her talent and wonders if she's a natural at magic too. He invites them for cake, mentioning Charlotte can play with Cell on the mansion's roof. Now Jack needs a word with Thanos, who offers a respectful and deep bow. Where did the girl learn such skill? Jack asks Thanos if he accepts his total defeat. Thanos is reeling. It's hard to swallow that Charlotte has such superior combat instincts. His expression darkens. Realizing you're being outclassed while losing ground is a bitter pill. Charlotte countered him twice, effortlessly, leaving the young girl herself confused by her own power. If Jack hadn't stepped in, that giant would be face down in the dirt right now. Jack asks him point blank, "Are you being stubborn or just stupid?" She looks harmless, but that tiny thing read his strength, crafted a strategy, and completely neutralized his every move. The guy just grumbles lost. Thanos should have adapted his sword technique to the situation. He should have controlled his strength, but instead he just kept swinging wildly like an amateur. Since that failed, Jack offers a training until death program. Now, that actually terrifies him. He wants to be the continent's strongest, but that dream requires a hellish level of effort. Jack demands a real answer. Is Thanos truly ready to push past his absolute limits? Gripping his sword with trembling hands, the boy nervously swears that he's ready for anything. Thanos thinks it's just big talk and begs the mentor not to leave him alone. Jack asks for help designing a plan, realizing he needs to create a sentient sparring partner. A phantom training partner that acts real. That's going to drain a massive amount of mana. Jack carves arcane symbols into the ground, weaving together a complex combination of universal rules. It's a forbidden fusion of death and illusion, the darkest magic in his entire arsenal. This spell warps a specific area, spreading dark mana to manipulate the environment's very flow. Inside, it induces pure panic and madness, while ninth circle illusions create living people. By merging these, Jack recreates a terrifying technique from his secret past life. He distracts his mentor by playing with her hat, hiding the true intensity of the ritual. After a moment, Jack turns and beckons Thanos to step closer to the magic circle. He explains that battles have difficulty levels from 1 to 10. Higher numbers mean certain death. Hesitant and playing it safe, Thanos chooses to start his training at level 1. Jack doesn't argue. Once the preparations are complete, the stage is set for a brutal awakening. Jack commands him into the circle. Trembling, Thanos enters and immediately falls into a deep trance. The mentor asks who Jack chose as an opponent. He leans in and whispers the name. The answer is so shocking that Valentine can't hide her disbelief. Are you actually serious? Jack claims he'll win the bet in record time. His chilling smile makes the mentor shudder. Thanos wakes up in a void, confused. A sudden sound behind him makes him spin around. A swordsman stands before him. After a tense second, Thanos realizes the silhouette looks hauntingly familiar. The man looks up, revealing Jack's adult face. It's the protagonist himself, sword pointed at Thanos. Understanding the stakes, Thanos takes a stance. This isn't just training, it's a fight for survival. Adult Jack blurs instantly. Before Thanos can even react, his sword is sent flying with one strike. The brutal reality hits him. Jack decapitated him without a second thought. Thanos jerks awake on the cold dirt, gasping for air and paralyzed by terror. He frantically claws at his neck to confirm his head is still attached. Jack extends a hand, playing dumb like he does not get why Thanos is freaking out. Shaking, Thanos struggles to stand. Who else is in the circle, he gasps, but Jack shrugs it off as a mere illusion. Thanos is totally lost. Jack clarifies it is all high-tier illusion magic. He points out that Thanos is a total newbie in real combat. He has never truly tasted death or fought for his life. Within that circle, he faced 18-year-old Jack. Thanos should have caught on, but Jack breaks it down anyway. To level up, he must fight Jack's past self. The longer he survives this onslaught, the stronger he will grow. Jack claims that what Thanos lacks in raw talent, he can bridge with pure, grueling experience. This simulation bans all magic. It is strictly a test of elite swordsmanship. The difficulty sits at the first circle level. Jack tells him to aim for victory, leaving Thanos completely dazed. See, Jack never mentioned his reincarnation, so he wonders why Thanos is acting so insecure while pounding his own chest. Thanos nods, swearing to win. Even if it is just a magical trick, the sensation of dying feels terrifyingly real. Dying repeatedly in there could drive anyone insane, but Thanos is built differently. He can handle the mental strain. Jack genuinely believes in him, even as Thanos pushes through broken bones and torn muscles during his relentless training. He swings his blade day in and day out. When Jack last checked, Thanos admitted he only trains, eats, and sleeps. The real issue is that all that insane willpower was being flushed down the drain, wasted in the wrong direction. He just needs to die in that circle, learning from every fatal mistake until he can surpass everyone in his path. Jack is going to personally mentor the kid to ensure he reaches his full potential. This is his new mission. Jack then asks how much longer he will be called My Lord. At first, he just wanted to use him, a mere chess piece in his game, but things have changed. He wants Thanos to be his official right-hand man. Lord sounds way too stiff now, he should just call him boss. Naturally, this makes Thanos feel pretty awkward. He asks if Master is okay, making Jack stop and think. Jack does not mind and gives him a slap. He tells Thanos to use whatever title feels natural. Hearing that, Thanos turns bright red but flashes a rare smile. Our protagonist does not look back, just keeps walking while telling Thanos to quit stalling and hurry up. Climbing the stairs, Charlotte is spiraling, trying to figure out what she did wrong. She waited for the boss after, but he never showed. She saw Thanos and wanted some combat tips, but the second the boss arrived, the vibe shifted. Even though they praised her, Jack seemed low-key annoyed despite the smile on his face. Something was definitely off. Maybe he is mad they dueled without permission. She knows she needs to apologize. Then she looks up and freezes. A girl is standing right in front of her, looking absolutely petrified. The fear in her eyes is unmistakable. Suddenly, she drops to her knees, pressing her forehead against the ground. Charlotte is completely stunned and terrified by this. She remembers the dragon that treated her and her mother like trash. Now she despises dragons with a burning passion. She even showed that hate when meeting Cell. But the boss insisted that Cell was nothing like the monster Velectus. The girl's body was trembling with guilt for not noticing Charlotte's approach. It seems Charlotte feels deep pity for Cell. Overwhelmed by emotion, she drops down and pulls Cell into a tight hug. Jack had kept her past a secret, but it was obvious that Cell was deeply traumatized. The chef mentions the girl, surprised she is still on the roof. Suddenly, Jack spots the scene and wonders why they are both hugging on the floor. He figured they were besties, but it looks like the friendship is pretty one-sided. Looking closer, Cell is totally paralyzed while Charlotte is sobbing. The blonde finally notices the voices behind her and realizes what is happening. She spins around to see the boss. She jumps up and rushes over to apologize frantically. But as she approaches, Cell suddenly bows down again. She almost slams her head against the floor in submission. This hurts Charlotte's heart, and she tries to help Cell. But Cell begs to be let go. Something is wrong, this girl is nothing like she was last night. She must have endured hell in that lab. As Jack nears them, he scoops both girls up in his arms. He starts carrying them off while asking why Charlotte is apologizing. She explains that she thought he was angry. Angry because they trained without his consent. Suddenly, Charlotte starts tearing up and screams that it will not happen again. For their secret grind. Charlotte suddenly hits her breaking point, screaming that she won't let it happen again. Our FL snaps that she trains whenever she wants, zero permission required. Jack finally breathes his anxiety, totally vanishing. There's no reason to be pressed about it, even if she's constantly